Hello, hello, hello. Good morning and welcome. You are on the mountain with Rick and Louie, and it is time to get off the cuff. But first, coffee. How are you doing today, my friend?
Pretty good. A little tired. It's not that early, but it's pretty early for me. It's like
Yeah, I get
9
you.
a.m.
8:45 a.m. is definitely a time I'm not all that familiar with. My favorite bedtime is right around
Yeah.
dawn, and I tend to sleep until
Yeah,
about
me too.
noon.
Me too. Yeah.
So it's still pretty much first thing in the morning for me as well, although that's actually, 1:15 p.m.
Oh yeah, 4 hours later. Yeah.
And you threw me for a loop when you said you were 4 hours behind when you said 8:45 in the morning. I'm like, wait a minute, I know Pacific is 3 hours behind me. Where
Yeah.
the fuck is
There's
this
one
guy?
more.
And then last night I was talking with
Yeah.
Kevin. He's like, oh yeah, he's up in Alaska. So tell me about Alaska, man. I spent like an hour there on my way over to Iraq. We did have a layover in Alaska, but I don't count that as having, seen or experienced the state. I do know that it is magnificent and beautiful, and also not exactly hot.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, in the summer it gets to like in the 90s, which is hot for me, but it's not that hot. Most of the year it's really cold, and in the winter it gets down to -40, but it's only for like 2 weeks. But yeah, other than that, it's like a lot of open space, a lot of privacy, really nice sunsets and uh, nature, wildlife, all that. Yeah.
And
Um,
whereabouts are you at in Alaska? Are you in one of those places that gets like the straight week where the sun doesn't come up, and then the straight week in the summer where the sun doesn't go down? Or are you like?
yep.
I think that's only kind of the northern
I'm
part,
in
right?
Fairbanks. It's in the center of Alaska, Fairbanks. There's really only like a few big cities in Alaska. There's like the biggest city is Anchorage, which is down in the south on the shore.
Yeah.
Um, but then Fairbanks is like the second biggest city.
And then there's
It's right in the
Juneau, which
center.
is on the north end, right?
What's that?
And then there's Juneau, and that's on the north end, right?
Juneau's actually down south on the they call the Panhandle,
Oh, okay.
which is the part of Alaska which kind of extends down the coast next to Canada. It sticks into Can like along the coast there. Um,
Cool, cool. Yeah, I would love
Juneau is
to.
actually like I've never been to Juneau actually, but it's the capital city, but it's actually smaller than the other two cities. And I think it's hard to get around because it's a lot of little tiny islands or something that are connected with like bridges, and you have to take ferries and stuff. It's like, and I think people fly in with an airplane or something like a float plane.
Okay.
I've never actually been there, so maybe I'm making it sound way more mystical than it is. But
No, I mean, I'm sure that that there are problems associated with, especially island hopping. Like,
yeah,
water is definitely a question that needs to be answered in terms of getting around. But that's it's awesome. How long have you been up there? Are you like native Alaskan? Did you move up there?
no, I moved up here in 1998, so I've been here for a long time. I was like 13 at the time, so I've actually been here like the longest portion of my life. But I was actually born in Hungary, um, and then I moved to like several places after that.
Cool, cool.
I lived in I left when I was like 4, and I lived in Germany for 3 years, and then I lived in Canada for like 5 years, and then we moved down to California in like 1995, and then was there for like 3 years. Then we moved up here to Alaska. My
Cool.
dad really likes hunting and stuff, so that's why we were like in Canada, and then we moved to California, and he was like, 3 years was all he could tolerate before he was like, all right, we're going all the way to Alaska this time, basically.
Well, obviously you don't hate it since you've stayed there for 25 years. What's your
Yeah,
favorite
like
thing about Alaska?
my brother left, for example, but like I stayed because I like it here. Yeah,
What's your favorite thing about Alaska?
just the privacy, I think, and how it's fewer people. Like every time I go out of state, I'm usually like glad to come home. I don't really like big cities in general, so like this city here is like 100,000, which is a decent size, but it's like it's pretty spread out, and also just like um, it's more like an attitude thing. People
Gotcha.
don't really like. It's like the houses, for example, are like even just like 5 minutes outside of town are like where they have their own driveways and they're very separated. They don't really have the whole like there are suburb parts where the houses are right next to each other as well, but even there, it's like people are pretty private.
Yeah, and I think that's becoming the way things are all over the place. Because even like here in Florida, like I am pretty right next to my neighbors. I mean, we all got yards and everything like that. It's not like right on top of each other or whatnot. But I just starting to get to know a couple of my neighbors, and there's a bunch that I've like never seen and whatnot. And yeah, the world is definitely, as much as it's more public online, offline, it's become a lot more private, I think.
Yeah, it's a little weird. People won't say hi to their neighbors.
Yeah, there's a definite lack of neighborliness nowadays, but I mean, I guess that's also kind of just the way the world is going with all the stupid shit that's happening and everything like that. So I can't say I don't get it, but it's not.
Maybe it just has to do with us being digital so much now. We're like,
yeah,
I used to think I was like an introvert and like a shut in, and then I'm realizing like the world around me is becoming even more than I am, you know. And I'm like, holy shit, maybe I'm an extrovert. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the extroverted side of things. As I never really thought about that necessarily, like growing up and whatnot. But now that my fiance, she's very much introverted, and I see the stark differences from that, and also have kind of grown to understand other people a lot more because of those differences, and just like a lot of the things that we don't necessarily see eye to eye on has helped me kind of develop a better understanding for other people.
Yeah, I had a friend who was like a extrovert, big extrovert, and then it's like, you know, it's like we can get along very well, but and also it's like just because I'm introverted doesn't mean I'm like shy necessarily, or like, you know.
Exactly. Like she's.
Or like
I don't think
like
it
to
necessarily
talk. It's
means
like,
that you're shy.
Yeah.
Or whatnot, but like when she deals with people or the public, particularly, you know, as a waitress, because that's you know what she's doing.
It's draining. That's how I would put it. It's very draining.
Exactly. Like me,
versus for the extrovert, they get charged up.
I get energy from, you know, being up on stage or, you know, dealing with a bunch of people or whatnot. Like out at a party, like everybody that I'm talking to, like that's filling me up. And as I started to understand that that's like draining her batteries, and so like she can go out and do a party and have fun, but then after that she needs like 3 or 4 days of not leaving the house in order to recharge afterwards. And I'm like, I can do 3 or 4 days in the house, but after that I need a party to recharge. Like,
I know. My friend would get really like depressed if he hasn't talked to someone for 3 days, and it's like he could tell he really needs it to like brings him alive, you know. It gives him, sustains him. But for me it's like, I need to kind of like recuperate a little bit, recharge.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm kind of just starting to really figure that out. Hey JT, welcome. You are on the mountain with Rick and Louie, creator of Pixil Minis. And speaking of which, this is after all a gaming channel. Let's get into the games. What was your first game? Where did Louie get bitten by the gaming bug and lose his entire future to this gaming world?
A video game or like game? Because
whatever you want to answer.
So like the earliest games that I played were like card games with my grandmother, because she would always teach me these. There's actually like a German or Hungarian set of cards that are different than the English 52 set or whatever. They also have 4 suits, but they have like Roman numeral 7 through 10, and then they have like lower, upper, king, queen, and ace or something like that. It's like it's slightly different, and the suits are like nut, or they're like nut and leaf and hearts. So it's a weird like that, right? But then she would teach me all these different games, just like how American cards or whatever have like many different games you can create and play with the one deck or whatever.
Yeah,
that was my earliest. But then as far as video games, it was Super Mario Brothers on NES.
Nice.
Which I played like at a friend of the family, like a friend of my dad's or something. Like we were like visiting and he had one and he was showing us and we were like really blown away. And I think like a few months later, my dad got us a Nintendo.
Definitely started with Nintendo myself as well. Mario is absolutely a mainstay on the greatest games of all time list. It might not, be number one, but I don't think any gamer has, no Marios in their top 10. Like, I don't think such a person actually exists. Mario is.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I would put it in my top 10. There's a lot of games to contend for top 10, but it's mostly because I'm actually like a RPG fan. So like, while I like Mario, it's a platformer game, which is I also like those back then. And my favorite genre then on Nintendo was like the beat 'em up type games, which I would play with my brother co-op, because you can actually play at the same time. Versus like if I was playing Mario, I'd have to play 2-player, and I was like the younger brother, so I get to play Luigi, which means that my brother would try and do streaks of like, let's see how long he could play. And not let me play.
Oh yeah, I'm intimately familiar with that one. I got an older brother myself, and yeah, he was a big part of my introduction into games. And that's definitely a common refrain.
But then like Zelda on NES is another pretty important game for me, which is like an RPG game. And and a friend of mine in school showed me Final Fantasy, and he said the way he put it was, "This is the only game that's good on NES." That's what he said, and I was like, "Okay." And I checked that out, and I was like, "Holy shit, this game is amazing."
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely make an argument that it is the best game on NES. I don't know if you could say it's the only good game.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah,
there's definitely a lot that falls under that category, but
but it's as far as like doing, it's because it's used as a stat system to like expand the progression. Like it's a lot more game from one cartridge compared to like most other games. You get like a few hours out of the.
Yeah, exactly. Oh shit!
Making it as difficult as possible, so you could play through the content in an hour. So it only take you like 20 hours to beat it because you were struggling to learn how to do it. Which is fine. That's like that was the strategy. But then with the RPG game, it's like you're getting 100 hours out of that game. So that was like really impressive back then. Just for like, and other games did that too, like Ultima on PC and stuff. Those kind of RPG games also were doing that, and they had an Ultima game on NES, I think, Ultima 4 or something. But I never played that on NES. But yeah, so I like RPG games and stats and stuff a lot.
Yeah, I'm also a big fan of the genre. That's kind of home for me in the gaming sense as well. My real gaming voyage started with D&D, and then Diablo.
Nice. I've never done D&D, but I've always wanted to. I've only ever like made a character. And,
well, that, to be honest, like for a lot of players, that is the best part. Like the character creation systems and the ability to customize. That's so much fun. I have made so many characters that will never see the light of day.
We did like one. After we did that, we did like an hour of play, but then we never did it again or whatever. It's like we just should have done it more, but we never really had a group or whatever. So
yeah,
that sounds really fun though.
And getting a group together can be so difficult as well. Like I have not played a decent game of D&D in years because I had a really good group up in Colorado, but when COVID hit and then I moved down and whatnot, like we were playing online over Discord for a little while. That was actually my introduction to Discord. But once things started settling down and they started playing in person again, it's really awkward to have just one person on Discord out of the group. So I kind of seceded from that party. And they're still rolling, they're still having a great time. Every once in a while I'll hang out with them and everything like that, but it's just not the same. And I
never even thought of that, like doing it online. That sounds like a pretty good idea, actually.
There are some great tools, but no matter what, you do kind of miss out on the face-to-face interaction thing. It's just like, playing Magic online versus face-to-face. It's the same game, but it's not the same game, And I feel like the same is true, just like, poker online.
I guess it becomes more about just the rule set, right, and the playing the rules. It's almost like I remember people who play World of Warcraft, and I would do this too. You're online with everyone, but you're playing by yourself. Like you don't want to play with other people apparently.
Yeah.
So would you still want to have them there, kind of, but it's different than when you're actually hanging out with people, and then you're having there's a lot of fun to be had. Like I would play Magic with people. Like we'd have big what is it called? Pack opening. What is it when you call it when you do the drafting? Yeah, we do that.
The best version of Magic. If anybody has any questions about that, just take it from me. Hands down, drafting is the best version of Magic. Whether it's cube,
I really like
whether
to
it's
make
chaos
the
draft,
decks.
whether it's set or block, or it doesn't matter. Like when you're opening,
My favorite part. Yeah, it's the making of the deck. So like it forces you, and you can spend hours doing that at home, and then you bring it to battle or whatever. But like forcing you to do the actual deck creation in a time limit makes like that be the game. The game is the creation.
Exactly.
I like that.
And I feel that it really evens the playing field too, because you're not all of a sudden like you're just up against somebody who is going to beat you because they have 10 times as much to spend on their deck as you. That was, kind of one of the big problems in Magic, and of course it's the same in every collectible card game because that's the nature of how they work. If you have better options, you win more often. Even Splinterland's the same type of thing, but. I do love that there is enough of that added, strategy and skill level to it that, it's not necessarily he who has the biggest wallet wins, but it definitely leans that way.
But then also later it was people look up the decks online. That made it even worse for me, I think, because now you're using someone else's you're what is it? Outsourcing everyone to try and make decks, and then one person finds the best deck, and then you get that deck, and everyone's copying that deck.
Yeah.
Now you're completely removed that learning creation part, completely removed now from the game for you.
And I do understand. I'm not a net decker myself, but I do understand their argument that really, the game is the actual play of the game, and so it still comes down to pilot skill. But I do feel there's a definitive difference.
See, but it has to do with what you're getting out of it, and I'm the same way with even I play guitar, and people like to learn songs, and that's perfectly fine. But I don't like to do that. I like to write music, so that's just how I am, and that's how I am with almost everything I do. I like to create things, so that's why I like to create the deck, because it's personally fun for me. But I know it's not fun for everyone, so I'm not saying everyone.
You're wrong for net decking.
No, it's just. Yeah. And I also know certain things are it gives you an advantage. It'd be stupid not to get the same advantage as everyone else because you're just cheating yourself, right? So that also is the argument is well, why would you not do that? You're just ruining the game for yourself by playing a subpar build is what a lot of people will say. This is in other games like Path of Exile or whatever. Diablo.
Yeah, no.
But then I'm but I don't care if I'm playing a shitty build. It's fun for me to try and discover the builds, even if it takes me 20 crappy characters. That's what I like about the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was, one of my favorite things I think about Diablo 3 and their introduction of seasons was that it especially also, Diablo 3 introduced me to hardcore. So every time a character dies, they're just gone, which I loved so much. Oh my God. But it was
never really did that, but I liked the idea. I think I only did that one time. I'm
I actually got up to there was one season where I managed to clear Greater Rift 100 with a hardcore demon hunter. I got up to I think solo 84, and with my full group build, because I had obviously two different demon hunters, one of which was just the solo grind through, and the other one was the team buffing and whatnot, and it's insane though.
You like to do that kind of stuff, team buffing, that's the not everyone likes to do that because it's a support role, right? Mm-hmm. I like to do that.
Support roles. I
like to play healer.
Favorites.
I like to do that kind of stuff. What's that?
I'd much rather play support than heal because heal I do find to be a lot more stressful.
Stressful. But I just mean it feels you're not really doing what with attack roll or whatever. You can just do whatever you want. Almost you're taking the action. The healer is more reactionary, and you're trying to support the group, and that's what I mean. Not necessarily healer versus I'm treating healer as a support.
And I mean, you're not wrong in that. I feel like there's a slight differential between the two, though, because a support is more proactive and a healer is more reactive.
Where they're still doing stuff, but then they're buffing at the same time or something?
Exactly. Like, I'm more concerned with making sure that we are at our best going into the fight and throughout the fight. And then the healer, I feel, is more of a, during the fight,
and
I'm making sure that no one's dying.
Crowd control, stuff too.
Yeah.
For the utility, yeah.
Yeah, I think my favorite thing about the Demon Hunter in D3 was just the mobility, though. That vault skill is just so awesome.
I played D3 the first 2 weeks when it came out, and I remember I actually made $200 or something.
Nice, I'm jelly.
But then I didn't keep playing it though. I didn't like it.
Oh.
I like Diablo 2. I played Diablo 2 10 times, where it would ladder reset or whatever. I actually would just be like, all right, I don't even want to play D3 anymore, and I played more D2.
That's hilarious.
And I like Path of Exile a lot.
I've never actually played Path of Exile. I know it's very similar to Diablo, and I've never
more
heard
similar to Diablo 2, I would say.
Okay.
Then that's why I like it.
Yeah, and Diablo 2 was absolutely amazing, and it's kind of like we were actually having this conversation last night or maybe the night before on the stream about how Diablo 2 killed Diablo, but Diablo 3 did not kill Diablo 2. There are very few people that are still playing Diablo. I actually did a stream in November because I found Diablo original with the Hellfire expansion, so I got that, and I did a stream where I went from character creation to killing Diablo. It took 12 and a half hours, 10 and a half hours of gameplay, and it was so much fun.
I played that original as well, and I think a few times, and I had it on an actual CD or whatever, and because I pirated everything else. But that one I actually owned.
That was kind of I remember.
But then Diablo 2 was it was just an upgrade in every way.
I remember opening day of Diablo, and that was really where I got the bug for video games. I went over to my best friend's place at the time, and he had gotten it, and we sat there for hours, and I was hooked. And the next day, I got my own copy, and it took me a little while to beat it. I mean, Diablo was definitely no joke of a boss for kids at that time, kids our age and whatnot. But man, it was just so much fun, and it was the closest thing that I'd found to D&D or MUDs, but with a visual component, and I was hooked, and I still am.
I remember watching a video. Yeah.
Diablo 4 launched their pre-access today, and it's I wish beyond anything, I wish I could be part of that. Granted, it's $120 to be able to get in for the pre-access.
Okay, it's not actually fully launched. Okay.
Yeah, no, open access I think will be in 4 or 5 days later this week or beginning of next week.
That's not too long of a wait at all.
No, but
Diablo
also,
4 I think is supposed to be more like Diablo 2.
I don't think my computer would be able to handle it. I might be able to play it. I definitely couldn't stream it. But I honestly don't think I could play it either. And that's it reminds me of Diablo 3. Because Diablo 3, I had pre-ordered it. I was there at GameStop at midnight for the release with a bunch of my buddies. Picked up the game, went home, installed it. Took 6 hours to get everything installed and whatnot. And I was super excited because, Diablo 3 introduced the real money auction house. I'm all right, I can actually make a living off of playing my favorite game. That's fucking dope. And then I go to launch it, and it's your graphics card does not meet the required specifications to launch this game. And I'm fuck, it took me 6 months to get a new graphics card. And by the time I did, Real Money Auction House was dead.
Yeah, it was dead so fast. It was the 2 weeks is
exactly. I was pissed.
Because it was at the very beginning, everyone was paying $20 for a nothing item just because it was the first one ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, people are the same way at the ladder resets, but this is the first ever ladder, so it's even more exciting to be the first one to own that crappy item.
Exactly.
The unique low level item or whatever. Yeah.
So, how did you come up with the idea for Pixil Minis, and tell us a little bit about your world and What's up with that? I
So
have picked up a couple of the characters and whatnot. I got a couple 42
cool.
powers and a number
Nice.
one mint with 42 power, which I was pretty stoked to find for cheap, even though I know that
Well,
doesn't
so
really
actually,
count.
wait. The number one thing is like they're all number ones because they're all like one of one, right? And so there's it's a I kind of just messed up the schemas a bit where like the very beginning when I was making it, I didn't even know what I was doing, and I was doing it on testnet. I was doing it on the main net, and I kind of just messed up all my stuff. So I didn't even create a template. I didn't even make a template at all, and then that makes it so that they all say one of one. They say all say mint number one, but they will, you know, they won't even they don't know how to reference each other or anything like that. And then they all just say like number one, but the name will say what number they actually are. So like it'll say like their name number 578 or something like that. So in their
Okay.
name you can see what number they actually are. So it's probably not an actual one because there's only one. Like there is one that is a mint number one, which also has token ID number one. You know, like that's like a, and there's one like that in the Alpha 2 set, and there's one like that in the Alpha 3 set, and then there's the Alpha 3.1 set, which I did slightly different, where I actually made a template, and they all share the same template, and then there's like 10,000 mints, and that's where the mint number actually matches the token number, so that's like less confusing. But they're still all one of ones, so maybe people might assume it's like 5,000 mint number 5,800 or something, and they think like there's 5,800 copies of this one mini, but they only think that if they've never seen another mini before. So as soon as they see another mini, they know they're all one of ones. So
Yeah, I think
I've
what
seen
I
them.
got is like the number one of that series. Like it's
Yeah.
not obviously
Oh,
super important or anything like that, right? I think it's the
what
number
is
one
it?
of
Actually,
series three or something.
I kind of want to know what it is. What's your WAM?
OXU2M dot C dot WAM.
Okay, there it is. I want to check out what minis you have.
Like I said, only a couple so far. I don't have all that much wax and whatnot, but and so like I know we have the characters and whatnot, and I know you're still like working on like the combat specs and everything like that. But I do want to kind of get some information out about your project. So like, what is official? What can you tell us? Everything like that.
Okay.
As far as how things work and everything like that.
So there's tokens that are the characters, and like the main thing for me is that I try and maintain the relationship between the token and like an in-game what I call a rig. So it's like it's a puppet, like a boned rigged puppet where you have like different parts that are all attached with the skeletal structure, so they can move around and walk around, and they can move their arms and their legs, and they're not just like a picture basically, but the NFT is. And so I have a thing that I call the generator, which generates the character, which rolls all the different stats and properties for it, and rolls also the random like hair and random skin color, random clothing. It also randomly colors the clothing and stuff. And then it makes a PNG, which is like the actual image for the token, and then it makes a data file with all the properties in it. And then I mint the data file, which also has the link to the IPFS. Like it's a whole process, right? And then I upload the images, and I get the IPFS back, and I run my custom script to parse all the IPFS hashes into the data files, and then I run another script to just like mint the token. But then the token itself will have all of the properties in there. Like they'll have like which hair they have written in there as one of the properties, and then they'll say like what the color of their hair is also as a property written into the token. And so then there's a game client which loads the tokens, and it accesses all that data, which is like that's like the main point of having that puppet rig thing. So you can insert it into games, and it's a Spine 2D model, which is like a third party boning modeling or whatever thing. It's a 2D thing where you assemble 2D pixel puppet or whatever, and then you can animate it and stuff like that, and you save that into the spine file, and then you can import that spine rig into different game engines and stuff, and I'm using it in Phaser 2D game engine. But I could use it in other things, like I've used Unity and Godot and stuff, and the generator is actually in Godot game engine. And so currently there's a live game on pixelmini.com/play, and you can just like, you don't have to log in, but you can. And you can, if you log in with your Wax wallet, it'll access which minis you've recently purchased in your inventory, or it'll sort it based on the most recent purchases, and that'll be like the character that it'll load in with, and then you can switch between your characters and toggle between them. But that's just all kind of like a temporary placeholder, because right now you can't fight, and the game state is not being stored yet on the blockchain, like where your squad is, what you have, like what items you have equipped is like not being stored right now. So if you like refresh your page, for example, you can go back to the spawn point every time. But you can travel around in the world, where if you walk to the edge of a screen, just like in NES Zelda, you travel from one area to another area. And those areas are actually also NFTs, which are currently on the test net. And the map data is actually inside of the NFT map, or whatever, the properties. And then you, like the actual tile map is in the properties, like it's a 32 by 48 tile grid of objects like trees. And can you see the little stuff to my side, the little see the little bushes and the crates and stuff, or is that cut off?
I can. The viewers can't, but it looks great. Like, I love your art style.
And so, the art is actually by this new artist I got, Hatoken. I did all the art myself, and I made like the Pixil Mini itself, and I made a lot of the clothing on them and stuff. But at some point, I had another artist that worked with me, Frankie, and he made like a bunch of really cool hairs and a few clothing items and stuff. But then I've had Hatoken join just this January, and he's been like doing a bunch of new items he's like redoing all of the old items that I made that are crappy, and he's also making a bunch of new items that are going to be added into the generator, which gives them a chance to be rolled. And it also, like, the generator randomizes all the colors on them. So if he creates a new hat, he's actually creating like millions of new hats, because it'll be like many different color combinations of hats and stuff. And he's also been redoing all of the world object art, because I'm okay at pixel art, but that's not my main skill. I'm actually a programmer mainly. But so that's actually why I made the Pixil Minis, is because I'm not that good at art, and it was easier for me to create a character randomizer where I just make like different head shapes, and then I just like generate a bunch, and I pick the one that looks like an actual RPG character, because I can't just like draw it from my mind's eye or whatever how I want.
Gotcha.
So I'm not like an actual, not a full artist. I just get by, and maybe I am. I don't know. But then Hatuken, he's like redoing all of the world asset art, starting with the grasslands tile set. And I also had a bunch of like free asset stuff. Not free, but like I paid for a bundle, like $20 for a bundle, and you get like 30 different art packs in there. And you can use those professionally and everything. But it's like, I just want to have my own art, like, or in-house art or whatever. Like, not that I make it, but it has, made custom made for the game essentially. So I started redoing all the art. So the trees and the bushes and the kind of like the main spawn point currently are like all made by him, and I think it's making the game like more cohesive. Because before it was like a bunch of my weird art and mixed with asset art from art packs and stuff like that, and so having him all do it all is like really good and starting to look really awesome, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely always good to have that kind of cohesion to add to the verisimilitude of your world. So tell us about the world.
So currently, okay, there's two parts to the world. Like, there's the world, like, as in the lore and the story and all that stuff, right? And then there's the world as in like the connection, the network of maps. So it's like it's a network of maps. Like the thing I think about is linked lists for programmers. It's like you have like an area, and it has a pointer that points to another area, and it connects it. So it's just like a link. So imagine like a web page, like a network map of web pages linked to other web pages. But it's like, actually another example is text adventure. If you know that, I don't know, maybe that's not a good example these days, but like, you know, text adventure where you'd be like, you are in this area, you see a thing and it describes the scene, and then it'll have like, you can go here. It says like, oh, there's a cave entrance over there, or there's like the tunnel going down that direction, and those are like your links which point to other areas. It's kind of like that.
Gotcha.
And then, but because it's a link like that, it can be an infinite sized world. That's what the point of like the linked list is. And then the data's all stored on the blockchain for that, like where everyone is, which area they're in, like what's happening on each area. That will be stored. Like currently, the only thing that's on the blockchain is the actual data, because the NFTs are on the chain. I'm basically going to be like working on all the smart contract stuff with the battle and the world persistence, as I call it, which is like the players like existing like in the world, and it's tracking it, and then other players also know like where they are. So if someone's like in area 10, everyone knows that they're in area 10, so that means they can render them in area 10, and that's how you can start to get like where you see each other in the world.
Gotcha.
So, and that'll start happening once I start to actually have the data persisting, and so that's why I want to do that all on chain, because I've done stuff like server. Maybe I should try and explain kind of. I worked on this project in 2010 called Art PG, which is a game that's like everything is an art. Like a hero is an art. Like you just upload a picture and that's like your hero. And like an item is an art, and your hero would just equip like a bunch of items that are all just different, like art into different item slots. And also an area was an art, and people could own it, and it was a network map that connected all the areas. So I kind of created a thing like this already, but it was like with a MySQL database. So that was like my back end. And so now with Web3, like people talk about Web3 and they talk about Web3 games, and they're talking about the play to earn aspects of it, right? But I'm thinking, when I think Web3, I'm thinking like the back end infrastructure difference between that and server, like Web2 server based stuff. So I'm just thinking about it as like, wow, this is really cool that the data structure can now all be on chain, and like I don't have to maintain a server, I don't have to run a server. It's like all that stuff is like, it's moving more of the parts up to the responsibility of like the network, rather than having it, each person has to redo the, like everyone shouldn't have to make their own server. Like that's why they call it Web3, I think. It's because it's an upgrade to the old way of doing things, that we're moving more and more. Like Web 4 is going to be where like everything's handled by the thing, and then you're only writing like a shell script or something that's like very front end or something like that. And then it's already pretty much like that with Web 3, I guess. Like my client is all going to be like a dummy client, where it just reads the state of the world from the chain, and then it acts as an input controller of like, what do you want to do, which is really just like a front end for the smart contract actions. So like as an example, the traveling between an area from one area to another is a smart contract action, travel. And in my RPG game, that was like a function, travel, which is like, it's like the same thing kind of, but it's just a different implementation. Yeah. Oh, and then the lore part of the world is the other part, is like it's in the land of Mora, which is a fictional world that I'm creating, and it's the land of, it's kind of like the land of fairy tale in a way, because I read a lot of fairy tales as a little kid, and my because the Hungarian fairy tales are very like fantastical, and like they have like flying castles, and seven-headed dragons are like a common thing in every story, and so I want to try and incorporate those kind of elements, and also I have like a lore I've been working on kind of for games for a long time. So that's the thing you also asked, is like, where did this come from, or how did I make this? It was because I've been making an RPG game for a while that was like, well, like for most of my life I've been trying to make like a little RPG game, and it would just kind of, the projects would get more and more complex, but then it was in 2018 that I was working on like the Unity, kind of more Unity and Godot versions of like a top-down interactive simulation is what I'd call it, where there'd be like little squads and they can roam around in the world, is the idea. I really like interactive simulations, like RimWorld or something like that as well. But then so we'll be creating like a dynasty family that's like based off of my dogs that I used to own. And so this is like the lore part of it that all came from my past game projects over time that kind of just kept getting wrapped up into the newer project, and I'm adding more and more to it. And then in 2018, I had like the most advanced version of my game up to that point. And then I think it was like, yeah, my friend left the project because he got a really sweet job, actually, because I was working with a friend. And so then I had to restart the whole thing again by myself. And then I actually saw CryptoPunks. And that's how the whole thing turned into an NFT project. Because I saw that and I was kind of like, I already have a character generator system. And I've been working on this game, and they actually have like a rig where they can move around. CryptoPunks doesn't have that. They're just a head. They don't have a body. They don't have a movable body, that's for sure. And so then I spent like a few months working on the generator, because I thought, like, if you're going to make an NFT where you're just like making basically like a character generator of an RPG, right? Well, you better make it really complicated and advanced. Otherwise, like, because you're making, like, you're minting this thing, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're creating a Terraria character at the beginning, you know, it's like it can look like someone else's character, but if you're minting it, it better be like so many choices that it's very unlikely that you're going to have one that looks like someone else. So like I made the variations a decillion, which is like 33 zeros or whatever.
Yeah, I'm actually like my number vocabulary does go up to the
I had to look that up.
Like I actually have a spreadsheet that I have made that goes from like negative 24 digits, or 10 to the negative 24th, all the way up to like up until I started hitting the errors on the Google Docs, because it's like, no, that's just too many digits. But yeah, I mean, you can get almost up to a Google before Google is like, no, I can't do that.
Oh right, they named themselves after that. I forgot. Yeah.
So I'm really actually interested in the whole procedural generation aspect of things and whatnot, because I do have my own project. This little world right behind me. This is something I've been working on for a little over 20 years. And it's basically like the culmination of everything I've ever done in gaming, like all of my favorite
yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But for the game that we're working on, Dragon's Memories, I do want to have PFPs for, you know, the races. So you'd be able to choose when you're minting, you know, what race it is that you want. But then you're going to have a whole bunch of attributes that are going to be procedurally generated. So is your generator that you have created, is that something that you are interested in licensing out or anything like that?
I mean, it's weird because, like, I don't think it's that awesome. It's really easy. It's like, it just says, you know, I'm deciding, I'm trying to pick a head. Give me a random number between 1 and 52, all the possible heads or whatever. That's it. And it's like one line of code. And I mean, that gets very complicated, and it's grown into thousands of lines of code.
Naturally.
And a lot of it is like pointless, where there's like, I have things in my code which is for searching and filtering the RNG space. Cause like, so it's such a huge possibility space that when I make a 10,000 edition mint from the total pool, it's just like a little sliver of like the total. And so I have like a lot of tools for exploring the RNG space. Like I have search through the RNG space and stop on a legendary, or stop on anything that has like 3 11s, like, because that's a really low chance to get that or whatever. So I have to like search for it and like see what it looks like.
Gotcha.
And I'm also like exploring RNG spaces that will never exist, that I'll never mint or whatever.
Yeah. So what is your process when you are pulling a random number? What is the process by which you are generating that random number, and how truly random is it? Because I know that is an ongoing issue with computers and random.
It's based off of a seed, so it's actually like it'll regenerate the exact same way every time. So it's if you have the same edition name and token number. So if it's like alpha 3.1 number 4,882, then that will generate the exact same looking mini and the exact same looking shirt and hat and clothing that would go on that mini. Like they go with the same ID number, the items do. Yeah. So it just picks a random number for all the parts between the total available parts. But it bases that off of a seed. So at the very beginning, it'll like it'll reset the randomizer, the RNG engine or whatever with the seed. And then from that point on, every random number is kind of like, have you ever heard about like how PlayStation does their random RNG?
I've been starting to
table.
look more into how RNG is handled in the computing world, but no, I'm not familiar with.
Because it's not actually random, so they have to. When you turn on the PlayStation, is like when it resets to the table or whatever, and like the first number in the table is like always the same number, and then the second number is always the same, and the third number is always the same, and then it'll be like the first time the application or the game requests a random number, it uses the first value from that table, and then it uses the second value and the third value or whatever. But the numbers are like just like a number from 0 to 1. It's like a 0.1125 or whatever number. It's like it's just a 0 to 1 number, and then that number you can multiply by whatever number you want to like get a number between. So if you want to get a number between 1 and 5, you like multiply the number between 0 and 1 by 5. So that means like if it rolled a 1, it would be a 5, and if it rolled a 0, then it'd be like, well, I think you have to have like a +1 or something in there. Whatever. There's a little stipulation to it, but basically you can have a number from 0 to 1, a value like that, create a random pick across any size range. So if you say like there's 32 helmets that I've created in the game, it'll like roll that number 0 through 1, and it knows how each one, goes along the range of 1 through 32 or whatever. And then that value is going to be like based on which number it is since the reset of the seed. So it'll be like the first value, the second value, the third value, the fourth value. So it'll be like the first value is always used for determining the head shape, and the second value is used for determining the hair. And, so it goes in order like that. Just running through. That's what I think they mean by procedural. It's a running through a procedure of steps, just one after the other. And like in Minecraft, that can be like, fill with land, put rivers, put ore. Like that's like those are the steps. But in this, it's really just like pick a random number for which hair you have. Okay, pick a random number for which like it has to randomize the colors. That's a huge part of it. Is it also picks the red, green, and blue colors that it randomizes. And there's a color layering system, which is like a big part of what makes them look unique. Is that I don't like this game, but I play this game Destiny 2, and in that game, one thing I like about it is they have a really cool color theming system, which is like that tells you about the type of game it is, by the way. Right. They focus more on guns, on skins, and pimping yourself out than the gameplay, I think. But you would have a primary, secondary, tertiary color, and like when you're trying to make like clothing, like if you imagine something like, I don't know why I always use this, but like an Adidas shirt or something like that, they have like the main thing and then they have the stripes.
Yep. So
those are like two different colors, and like if they have like a pocket, maybe they want to use the accent color, they're going to make that the same color as the stripes or whatever. Yeah. And like so it's like you kind of think of it like material 1, material 2. So it's what I call it is a material based randomizer, color randomizer. So then that way it'll look consistent. So when it won't look like patchwork clown clothing or something when you randomize the colors. And that's what I was doing at first. And I was like, this isn't, all these random characters look like crap and they all look like, like clowns. But then with that system of the primary, secondary, tertiary, then you can decide in the art what is layer 2. Okay, the pocket is, and then the stripe is layer 2. And then you just where you put the art on which layer then determines like the generator itself just rolls literally like primary, secondary, tertiary color for each of the items, and then it'll apply it to all those layers.
That's do you have something that like when it rolls the primary color that is going to influence the secondary and or tertiary colors? So like
no.
Okay.
So it's completely random, and that's kind of where it becomes the huge possibility space. And then to get a good character, it's just it rolled well. And so one of the hardest things, which I can't even, it's hard to classify. Yes, cat. It's hard to classify or measure is the aesthetic. Like, does this look good or not? And like, it's easy to say, okay, this is all 11s or whatever, but then to say this character looks good, how would I don't know how to, like, I can check for things like, are they more color coordinated? Those are the kind of things that make you as a human decide that it looks aesthetically correct. But that would mean something like the pants rolled a similar base color and like the secondary color matched or something like that. But then also you don't want to look good. You don't want to just all be blue either.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
you got to have some contrast too.
And then you want to have those highlight colors match that also. But basically, if a character looks like an RPG character, that's usually when they're good. And if they look kind of like clownish a bit, then they usually will be. There's actually a blend for burning 11 minis into a emerite coin, which will get you a pack of 3. So it's turning 11 into 3, which is pretty bad. But it's like some of them are bad stats, and some of them are also very bad aesthetically. So those ones would be for good candidate for burning or whatever. And so then it's also people are kind of deciding which ones are good enough to keep.
Right.
And then that way people also will be, it gives me a chance to keep making more, because then I want to have it so it's like each edition is like 10,000. And I want to make 100,000 for alpha and then millions later. So that's like how the system is already set up from the beginning.
And so how many like individual categories do you have? How many rolls get made? If I were to like mint a Pixil Mini right now, how many rolls are getting made?
I think it's like 35, but I didn't actually count. I can. It's the so there's 2 aspects, which are the like masteries. They have like there's 11 masteries in the game, like fire and water, but then also things like bashing and stabbing and slashing, like these kind of things. And shadow and light. Then there's the 6 attributes that are strength, agility, endurance, wisdom, intuition, spirit. Then their gender, and then which actually I'm going to change that to body type, because I'm going to be later adding like large orc type character or something like that as well. But it's basically like for every shirt you have to make a male and female version because it's slightly different. So. Yeah. For every new body type, I will have to like redo all the items. But it's like not like all the items. You just redo the item parts, like the things that are used in the generator. So that's like the whole point of it. It's like using a boning and rigging system. Is I'm not using the traditional sprite sheet method, which is like I wouldn't be able to do that. Like that's the compromise. You don't get to do the traditional sprite sheet type animation. You have to do the boning rigging type animation. But then you have the billions or whatever possible characters that all use the same animation, that all use the same rig.
And so you don't have to do know that. Like, I'm sure that there is a ceiling on how many of those rolls could be made. And obviously, you know, I know Pixil Mini's on wax, so we'll specifically talk about like wax PFPs. But like how... Do you know what that limit is? Do you know how far this could be pushed? Do you know how easy it would be to adapt this kind of procedural generation thing to 3D models?
To 3D models, it would be easier, I would think. Because that's like the biggest problem is actually that traditional pixel art part. And so in Spine 2D, what I like is that it actually does a pixel perfect like redrawing where like it will only render the pixel if it would end up in a pixel perfect position. So then it'll actually look like it like hides all of the kind of flaws of the boning rigging system to makes it look like it's traditionally pixel animated. But so if you're dealing with 3D model, that's like stretchable. Like in World of Warcraft, they would stretch the 3D armor item model to all of the characters, and then even the Tauren would like wrap the boots around his ankles, but it was the same texture. So it's actually easier because of the fact that 3D models are using the UV maps or whatever already. Pixar art, it's actually kind of like you have to maintain the Pixar aesthetic or whatever, and it's its own whole thing. But I would think the 3D modeling is easier, but I've never really done 3D modeling that much, so I can't say.
Fair enough. I'm also not really. I don't really do the modeling and everything myself, but yeah,
that's something my brother did. The one thing my brother did, so I never had to learn it.
As I've gotten into the process of putting this together, and once I got my lead dev and everything like that, like he's working on a first-person shooter, and so we started talking about graphic styles and whatnot. He's like, "Do you want it to be 3D?" I was like, "I never really thought about it being 3D because I wanted to make it, as easy as possible. But I mean, if that's what you're more comfortable with and that's what you're already working on, then." I mean, to hell with it. If we can make it beautiful, let's make it fucking beautiful. Like, all I actually care about is the gameplay. I don't give a shit what a game looks like, as long as it plays well. I mean, I just did a fucking, that stream on fucking Diablo. The game looks like shit, but it still plays great. Like, I've never been one that's super, caring about the aesthetics as long as the game plays well, and that's been my primary concern. But as we've been getting into it, he's like, yeah, it's actually going to be easier to do 3D. I was like, well, fuck it, we'll do 3D then. Let it look great.
It's also like it's easier to there's more I don't know how to compatibility or something, like having a 3D model exported and then imported into another 3D modeling program is like a standard thing, versus with 2D things there isn't a rig, like, other than Spine 2D. Like, that is one of those things, but it's not as popular. Like, with 3D modeling, that's like built into the core of like every 3D modeling that you can export. It's like a SVG file, like exporting a vector file for Illustrator. It's like there's a 3D model file that is like, then compatibility has been built around that by all the different apps, versus like Spine 2D is like a proprietary thing, and they're trying to kind of become like the one big thing, but then, you know what I mean? So it's not quite at the same level of like compatibility.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense, and is something I had never even really thought on. So that's
and just like, imagine you can go online and find browse 3D model catalogs. Hey, cat. He wants to go out because his dogs are outside.
Your cats and dogs actually get along? Love it.
Oh yeah, because like we got our dog when we had our two cats, and she was a puppy, and so then she was like raised by the cats, and then they didn't like the puppy, but then they grew to like the puppy, and then he would actually play with the puppy, and then the puppy Karma, her name's Karma, is like I call her a game designer dog, because she's like trying to create games, invent games, and with the cats, and she would like try really hard to get them to play with her whole life until she finally discovered a few games that they would play with her. Like, which one was just like, and I would give them names. One was Too Fast Dog, where she just goes up to them and she starts going like, "Rrr, rrr, rrr, rrr," and she's like taunting them. She like will dance around, and then they'll try to bat her in the face, and she'll dodge it. She's too fast. And then they'll like the cat and her would then like engage and play like formally, like the cat would jump up on the chair, and then she'd be like, "Oh, you want to play?" And then, because it's like they use the back of the chair as like a kind of like the fight around it, like, and then the cat would just like bash the dog in the face. So the cat loves that.
Yeah.
Full on, just like bam, 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 as hard as he can. So, yeah. And then we got our other dog later. And then at that point, she was a puppy too, and the cats were already like, knew what to do or whatever. And then actually that puppy became best friends with the cat, Voodoo.
So you got two of each?
Yeah, well, actually, our other cat died, Salem.
But... Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
This is a good name for a cat, though. Was it black?
Yes, he looked just like the cat from Sabrina, Teenage Witch, the animatronic cat. Yep. Back in the 90s show or whatever. Yeah,
I've had a couple of cats. The only one that was ever like just outright my cat was a pure black cat. I named her Lulu after one of my favorite League of Legends characters at that time. God,
that's what my wife calls me, is Lulu. My name's Louie. Yeah,
it makes sense. Makes sense. I don't think I ever would have guessed that, but I can totally see it.
And also stud muffin.
That's a good thing for your significant other to call you. That is, you're never going to be upset at hearing somebody call you stud muffin. At least, when it's somebody that you actually care for. In, creeper setting, it might be a little different, but... So, what was your introduction to crypto and Web3? Are you kind of an OG in the space?
Yeah, kind of. I had a friend who was like my programming friend who was working on my game project with me. Hold on a second. Okay, go. Stop. Stop that. And he was into crypto, and he in 2012, and he was showing me like Bitcoin and stuff like that, and I was kind of like, and it was actually like Litecoin was becoming popular then because it was hard to mine Bitcoin. So he actually had a workshop lab where he had 50 computers with video cards in there mining Litecoin. And I actually had 4 video cards set up at his lab myself where I was mining Litecoin. And that was like in late 2012, early 2013. But it was like, we were doing weird shit. Like he bought a printing machine that could print out like a wallet printer, paper wallet printer. And he was like giving people like a free Bitcoin. And they were refusing it.
Right?
They're like, what is this shit?
Like, I remember when World of Warcraft had the Bitcoin faucet in there, and I was actively playing, like, a lot at that time, and I never went to it. Never once.
Yeah.
And it's like, now I'm just kicking myself so hard for that. Like,
yeah.
I've been in the space for a couple of years now, but, yeah, I'm not super early, unfortunately.
I got an iPad for 1 Bitcoin and it was $500. That's now a $27,000 iPad, or it was a $69,000 iPad for a while.
Yeah. Although, like, also you can look at it, what did you pay for that Bitcoin?
Well, all the Litecoin I mined for a few months. So it was worth it for me at the time because iPad, it was unaffordable for me.
Exactly. Like, that's the thing. If it got you something,
and I use the shit out of my iPad, so I'm not unhappy about it, but I still think of it like, now it's a shitty paperweight thanks to planned obsolescence. And it's like, God damn it, why did I allow it to update to version 11?
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, now we definitely have that planned obsolescence conversation because fuck corporate America. But like, because that's the way I look at it too. Is like, yeah, okay, that Bitcoin, had you not spent it on the iPad and had you had perfect timing, yeah, you could have sold it for $69,000, which would have bought you the next few generations of iPads. But
yeah,
look at the opportunity cost of what you would have lost out on by not having that iPad when you did, and also. Yeah. You can flip the script on it and say, well, I bought that Bitcoin for, $10 worth of Litecoin, which I actually mined for, $2 worth of electricity.
I did nothing. Like, they mined, the video cards did all the work, right?
Exactly.
It really wasn't much effort for me. Like, it wasn't much work. I actually ended up reselling my video cards for full price because of their prices were going up because of mining. Because everyone was Litecoin mining.
Nice.
So it was like the 4 video cards was like $1,500, and I bought it for the exact same price as I sold it. Because the guy who bought it for me wanted to buy new ones, and they would cost more.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was only like 6 months later or something.
But you gotta love when you can buy something, use it for a while, and then sell it at full price or even a profit. I had this one really funny story from back when I was married up in Colorado. I actually sold the same car for a profit twice.
Oh, twice.
I bought it, I fixed it, I sold it back to the person I had bought it from. He broke it again. I bought it, I fixed it up, and then I sold it to someone else.
Nice. Well, see, you're applying your skill to like fix it up there. That's like you're adding value there, right? And like,
yeah, and I mean, like it was. It wasn't anything super crazy. Like the first time was straight up just a serpentine belt.
Okay. I've actually had to replace one of those in my Jeep.
I mean, it's a little bit of a bitch to do,
There's like 10 different things you have to detach and reattach or something for the serpent. So when you say serpentine, I'm like, I know what that is.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like it's a really easy operation as long as you know the proper routing and you have the proper tensioner.
I think I would pay someone to do it.
It's just reaching in there, and especially like depending on what car is. Some of them are really easy. Some of them are really not. Thankfully, this one wasn't like a 93 Focus or something like that. So
putting it back together perfect is the part that's where I'd almost rather just pay someone who knows how to do it perfect, right?
Right.
But I actually bought my Jeep in order to, so that way when it would break, I would be able to learn how to fix it. And it was like $1,900.
Yeah, there you go. And it's definitely best to do that with something like a Jeep and like older vehicles. Like
people would call Jeeps cheaps because they were so cheap, and also parts are really cheap because they're so like, especially the Jeep Cherokee was like such a popular car at the time.
Especially the Cherokee, especially like mid to late 90s Cherokees. There's like 200 million of them on the road, and they're all on the road. And I'm pulling a number out of my ass, but just like those things, they run fucking forever. And they can run through anything, and everything on them is easy to replace. They're great.
You know what they can't run through is a moose.
This is true. There's not much that can run through.
I hit a moose. That's how that Jeep ended.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Just after I fixed it, and then it was totaled, and I was like, no, now it's not worth the...
At least, though, like, the Jeep hitting a moose is going to help you survive a whole lot better than that Ford Escort hitting the moose.
I think my wife actually had a Ford Escort. At the time I had a Jeep. It's funny.
There you go.
I think she had to rescue me in her Ford Escort. After that, I hit the moose. She came to pick me up in her Ford Escort. Yeah. Yep.
And did the moose walk away?
No.
No. Okay. How hard did you hit it?
Well, so I think the moose actually ran into my car. Like, I dodged the moose, and then the head bashed into the car from the side. Like, it smashed its head into the corner of my car. So it smashed mostly, like, the windshield top corner of where the door frame connects, like the corner point there. It smashed its head into that, like, as hard as it could, and this was all, like, body damage, basically, to the car.
Well, I guess that's still definitely better.
And it hit him in the head, so he
actually hitting the moose, because I mean, I know how big moose are. It's been a long time since I've actually seen one in person. I'm Canadian, so we did do a lot of wilderness stuff up there and whatnot. Used to go camping all the time and everything like that. So I have seen moose, but it's been a long time. I've seen elk and some pretty big bucks more recently. And I know kind of what that size differential is, like, intellectually, but experientially, it's a different thing.
Now, I'm not sure it's true, but I think the Alaskan moose are also bigger because they're having to survive harsher conditions. So they're just like how bears are, like, the biggest grizzly bears are, like, Kodiak bears on the Kodiak Island or whatever. And like,
yeah, that makes sense, too. And that's the scary thought, because even the moose I think are fucking huge. Like, I'm not honestly sure if you run one of those over in an Abrams and you're not fucking totaling it.
Like, and what sucks is if you would encounter one on the trails, like walking the dogs or something, it's like, and if it's like a mother with a baby or something, they'll try and trample the dogs and stuff.
Oh yeah, moose are.
That's what I worry about.
Not friendly.
Yeah.
How often do you see, like, moose and bears and the really big, kind of dangerous wildlife up there?
I mean, I've moose come up to my house, and they'll be like, "Oh, there's a moose outside our door this morning," And I, like, live in the city, like, not that's like crazy. I live like 2 minutes from downtown, so it's like, you see them quite often, yeah.
That's fucking nuts. I
mean, moose you do, not really bears.
Yeah,
I have seen bears. I had a close encounter with a bear one time.
Elaborate, tell us. I'm intrigued.
Oh, okay. There was a Girdwood Forest Festival music festival type thing in the woods. People would be camping, and Girdwood is like a ski resort town in Alaska. And so there's like big parties going on everywhere, and there's camps and bonfires like up along the mountainside everywhere and down the river. And my friends made beer rice and did the naughty thing of throwing it aside in the camp. Like, you should never do that. Have food in your camp, especially in a place where there's known to be bears.
Yeah.
But then I got back to camp by myself earlier than everyone else, so I was like, I'm gonna hide under this blanket and surprise everyone. When like the first person who gets in the camp, they're gonna get scared, you know. And then I heard someone coming, and then I was like, realized it wasn't a person when you could hear they were like making like heavy breathing sounds.
Yeah.
like munching, like, and I was like, oh fuck. And then it was actually got like really close to me, like probably 3 feet. And I was like, I don't want to get up. This would be probably not a good moment. And so I waited like a little bit longer until it was like about 10 feet away. And then I jumped up and I yelled as loud as I could. And then it ran for its life. Because you're supposed to, with black bears, you're supposed to fight them and you're supposed to yell at them. And you're supposed to like try to scare them away. Versus a grizzly bear, that will only make it angry.
Yeah. Grizzly bear, you play dead.
Get down.
Black bear,
dead.
That's good to know though, because I mean, generally, you know, I think for most people, you know, when you see a bear, the first thing to register is, oh, when you see a bear, play dead. But yeah, knowing the specificity of, well, if it's a black bear, then you want to try and scare it off, and you're going to be better off than if it was a brown bear. Yeah.
Especially if you're like super loud, and they're usually scared. They're like scavengers. They're just looking for free food, and they're not actually predators as much. I mean, they can if they're like really hungry. Especially like the grizzlies, they won't eat you like unless they're really hungry, and then but they'll kill you if it's like a mother grizzly protecting her cubs. Then you're fucked. That's like the worst.
Yeah. Yeah, Mama Grizzly is definitely not something you want to be stumbling across under any circumstances.
There's this movie called The Bear. It was an old movie, and it was actually had like this live action, this bear called Bart the Bear. He's like an actor bear. And there's also a little bear cub, and it was like a story about a big bear cub and a little bear cub, and also some hunters and stuff. It's like one of my favorite movies. And in that movie, the hunter encounters the grizzly bear, and he's like up close, and he has to like get down on the ground. And he's like putting his hands up on the back of his neck, which is the right thing to do because you need to protect your vitals. Yeah, that movie's badass. It's hard to, very unknown by most people. Movie.
I've never heard of it. Honestly, when you started talking about a movie with a bear, I immediately went to The Revenant, which is another one I haven't seen, but like it's definitely
I've seen that. Yeah.
Pops into
it's similar vibes actually. Yeah, it's a very scenic movie too. Like they have epic widescreen shots of like the mountains and stuff. It's very epic.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely all about the mountains, as you might have gleaned from my name. Even though right now I'm in fucking Florida, trapped in the swamp, I'm still Rick on the mountain.
Oh, you're in Florida. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Are you originally from Florida?
Kind of all over the place. I was born in Toronto, raised in Detroit, graduated in Orlando, then I joined the Marine Corps, so I've been all over the place. And I've kind of, since high school, like my family was more or less based in Orlando, and so I've been back and forth a lot, going to other places, and then always end up coming back to Florida. Now my brother and sister are here. My parents have both passed. So, and like, I came back this most recent time, right as COVID was beginning. I got divorced, and my dad was in the middle of his second battle with cancer. And when I got divorced, and when I told my ex-wife that I was leaving her, she called the cops, said I threatened to kill her, a bunch of bullshit. So I had to deal with, probation and all of that shit and getting everything transferred over, so I wasn't actually able to make it back down in time to be here for my dad passing. But his new wife was running a dog rescue shelter, and so I agreed to come down and help her out with that. And then once I got down here, I found out that basically everything I had been told about the arrangements for that was not accurate, shall we say, to put things kindly. And it was a terrible situation. I ended up having to, kind of really scrounge and make things happen to get out of there. But at that same time, I met my fiance, and she was kind of also brought back to Florida under false pretenses related to family. She'd been up in New York for about the last 10 years. Then we, ever since we met, we got together, and we kind of both believed that, that's the reason we were brought back to Florida, because we both absolutely hate it here and want to get the fuck out. She wants to get back to New York.
So you were brought there just to meet each other? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, came back to Florida to meet each other.
Just for that temporary window. Yeah, nice.
Because it's like not even just COVID had to happen for it, but so many other things in addition to COVID.
Faded, yeah. That's
like it
destiny.
It's so crazy, and that's why like sometimes I just call her Serendipity. Like, 'tis thy name.
You just call her that. That's your name now.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I'm not saying Florida's without its charms. I mean, especially the place we're at right now, renting a house, and like, even before we moved in, we had some great wildlife, and then I've been working on a garden and everything like that. We got bird feeders out and everything like that. So
nice.
We already had a couple cardinals. Actually, like the last 4 or 5 places I've lived, I've had cardinals that visited, and so I always try and take care of them and whatnot. They've actually become my favorite bird lately. Okay. So I got 2 mated pairs.
We have
of
red
cardinals.
poles and chickadees that I have here at my house.
Oh, cool. We got 2 mated pairs of cardinals, and then we have a blue jay that comes around every once in a while. Over the last week, I've actually seen a falcon.
Aren't they super smart? The blue jays, aren't they super smart?
From what I understand, yeah, they definitely seem to be.
We have ravens up here. That's kind of like the state bird here. They're super smart, ravens.
Oh yeah.
There's one of the other animals that's like really high intelligence ratio, body size ratio, like humans.
Yeah, ravens and crows, definitely very intelligent birds. We've been making friends with the crows. We're feeding them every day and whatnot. We got a couple of I'd say, I can't be 100% certain, but there's got to be at least 15 to 20 of them that frequent this area, because I see like 6 to 10 at a time pretty consistently. And so I know that they're also, like, as I go around to other areas, like I used to work right down the street and whatnot, and so like just judging from the number that I'm seeing all around, I figure that's the case. Seen a falcon a lot over the last like week and a half, and that's kind of worrisome because their diet is 80 to 99% other birds, and I really don't want my fucking cardinals getting fucked up by that goddamn falcon. So I've been trying to coax the crows into scaring off the falcon, because in a one-on-one fight, a falcon will absolutely demolish a crow. But crows don't ever fight one-on-one. There is never one crow.
Shit. Huh.
So I feel like, we had been feeding the crows out in the front yard to kind of keep them separate from all the birds in the backyard, but now that the falcon's hanging around the backyard, now we're starting to feed the crows in the backyard. Now,
yeah.
Like, get that fucker out of here.
I don't know, you might not like this, but the cat goes out and he hunts the birds. And it's kind of not fair because I'm feeding the birds, right? And so that brings the birds to the yard. So the cat wears he wears a bell and like a red ribbon, but he still has managed to catch 2 of them.
Well, yeah, I mean but that's what cats do. They're nature's perfect hunters. Like, I'm not gonna be upset about a cat doing cat things. Does it suck for the birds? Yeah. And the really funny thing is he bringing you presents?
Yeah, of course. He's like brings it straight to me, and he's like, "Look what I've done."
So many humans are like, "Oh, that's so sweet. He's bringing presents." The cat is not bringing you presents. The cat is telling you, "You suck at hunting. Let me teach you how to do it better."
Oh shit! Oh. He also catches the voles. That's the other thing, and the voles are actually like in our garden, and so that's actually good.
Yeah.
And like we used to keep him indoors actually, and then he's been going out now, and he like hunts the perimeter, and now there aren't really voles. I mean, they're scared. They all left.
Unfortunately, our cat, we rescued a Siamese from her aunt, and he's declawed. I would never do that to a cat, but we got him already declawed, and so it's like, no, you never go in the backyard. You can come out on the porch because it's screened in, and we don't have to worry about you. But you are never going in the fucking yard because we have falcons around here.
Right, I worry about there's actually owls here. That would be the worst. So we don't let them out at night. And we created almost like a zoo enclosure where there's like chicken wire that hangs in. We have a chain link fence, and then on the top of it there's chicken wire that hangs in. So because he climbs the chain link fence, he'll just climb it. And so then at the top he reaches like the soft netting, and he can't climb it because he'd have to go he'd have to do a
underneath and then back over and whatnot. Yeah. Oh, give it a couple of years and he'll figure it out.
He'll figure it out, yeah. But no, he seems satisfied because he just really wanted to go out. Now he's like satisfied with having his perimeter to patrol, so he'll just patrol it. And then the dog is really funny because she'll check on him every 2 minutes, and he can't really hunt that way either.
Right.
She's just like always running up, checking on him and licking his face.
Are you okay?
She's kind of obsessed with him. She's obsessed. And she's like a herding dog, so she's like tracking him, like constantly tracking his position. She's obsessed.
So if you had to pick one, dogs or cats?
It's a hard question. I actually grew up with dogs. Like my parents owned Hungarian Vizsla breeding business.
Oh wow!
So they had and my dad would get dogs from Hungary. And then because it was he was saying that all the Hungarian Vizslas in America are crap, where they're they don't look like the Hungarian Vizslas, and he wants to fix the Hungarian Vizsla in America because they all look like rats, or it's a whole thing. It's him trying to be Hungarian, but then so I grew up with 15 of these dogs and also 200 puppies or something like that. So wow. I was always a dog person, and we had a cat one time, where someone had his house hit a cat for a week, and the cat was just sat in the window the whole week, and it was but then that's that's just how a cat's personality is. They don't want to befriend some new person, right? And then versus dogs are a little bit more open to meeting new people and stuff.
Dogs are ooh, new person, love me.
Yeah.
Cats are ooh, new person, fuck you.
Yeah. And so then I was a dog person, is my point. And then my wife had a cat named Beauty, who was a really old cat, and she was obsessed with me. The cat was, and then whenever I'd visit her, she'd come sit on my chest and stick her fish breath in my face, and because I would pet her. So I really started to like cats, and then our neighbor had a cat, Orange Cat we called him because we didn't know his name. And he would just come over and he'd come inside of our house and stuff. And I was like, damn, this cat's really friendly. And he's friendly to our dog at the time, Ava, even though he's never met dog before. And so I was some cats are cool. And then later when our dog Ava died, we went to the pound and we were going to get a dog, but we saw the cats. And so we saw Voodoo and Salem at next to each other, and we were going to adopt one, but it said that they came in together. So that's why we adopted both of them. And then I had cats for a few years until after we got Karma again as a puppy. But so I've grown to really like cats in that time, because Voodoo was my cat, and Salem was Margaret's cat, my wife's cat, and Voodoo was obsessed with me, and he's acts like a dog. He wants to be held, he wants to cuddle, he wants to he's just he's not standoffish or something like Salem was. More don't touch me, only touch my head, only pet my head, and don't hold me. It's you're imprisoning me, and some cats are like that. And then, but Voodoo is he's also 15 pounds, a giant cat.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a large cat.
So he's like a little dog. It's how we think of him. And so I really like cats. It's hard to say and I also like I let him like claw me. He really enjoys clawing me, and I really like enjoy letting him claw me. I don't know.
So tell me more about your masochism. Or sorry, your sadism.
Yeah. So it's like and also it's harder to win the cat over. So it's like a challenge. It's a game.
It is. It's absolutely a challenge. I was also raised pretty much. We had dogs always. I never had a cat as a kid. It was always dogs, and I love dogs. And honestly, like, I still prefer dogs. But over the past, I don't know, 15, 20 years, I've become a lot more exposed to cats, and I love cats also. But,
yeah, exactly. I think it's from this point on, I'm just gonna have both, basically.
Exactly. Like,
and
right
especially
now,
since like our fear was that they wouldn't interact, right? And they do. It's fine.
Yeah, we have an older and as I said, declawed cat. So right now, like, getting a dog would be kind of
it depends.
risky.
We tried to get a dog actually, and then the dog tried to kill the cat within 3 days, and we had to give the dog away. And that was like when that's when we decided, because we were trying to get a dog from the shelter, and that's when we decided we want to get a puppy instead. And then we actually got a puppy from the shelter, which is really hard to do because the puppies go fast at the shelter.
Yeah.
But so then that's part of what worked, is like the puppy is just open to whatever, right? And
exactly.
then they learn the cat, and then the cat was able to tolerate it, and now they're both like, and that's why when we got the other puppy, the cats are already like, this is normal for them. So as long as you keep getting cats and dogs at the same time, normalizing it, right? They will train each other forever into liking each other. I don't know.
No, that's exactly it, though. Like, we would have to get a puppy, and at this point, that's just not reasonable for us. Like, we've got a yard that would be good for a dog and whatnot, but as far as being financially stable enough to, deal with shots and vet bills and everything like that, like, Sam got sick a couple of months ago, and it almost destroyed us. We had to take him in for some emergency vet treatment, and
I had $1,700 because the dog ate too much grass, and like the grass got like clumped up in her stomach and like wouldn't digest, and they had to like operate on her. That was like within the first year of getting the dog.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we don't have a dog right now. Because like I would be more than happy to get a puppy, do all the housebreaking and everything myself, the training. I'm familiar with that. But yeah, it's just...
People think also if you get a dog from the shelter, it's cheap, and then it doesn't cost you. Like if you're getting a purebred dog, it's like a really expensive or whatever. So then they're like, oh, I saved myself the money. And it's like, no, you gotta watch out for those, like the emergency.
You might have saved yourself a couple thousand on the purchase of the dog, but you're still going to have to care for and feed that animal. And that's not free.
No. But yeah, I really like dogs and cats, and pets in general. Yeah.
So you've mentioned a couple of times you're Hungarian and that's your family history. My grandma was also Hungarian, so I want to say a word that I have not had an opportunity to say in a while, and I just want to see your reaction.
Okay.
Fucking Chedikas.
Say that again?
Chedikas. The greatest fucking cookies of all time. My grandma used to make them.
Yeah, Csedekesh. The end part is in Hungarian, the S's are like a sh sound.
Oh, okay.
So they're like the SH sound, and then the S sound is actually an SZ.
Okay.
It's weird. So it's the opposite. So that's why it's Kerekesh. And it means, Kerek just means like wheel. And so Kerekesh means like wheeled thing, or like... And I think that they're round, probably. I'm guessing those are like a cookie. I think my grandmother probably made me those cookies, actually.
Right, and like that's exactly like if my brother was watching this right now, and we had been talking about Hungary this entire time, and I didn't say Chedikas, he would have been like, "What the fuck are you even doing, bro?" Because my brother and I, we're both really big eaters, and that was like his favorite thing was just Chedikas. And of course, our grandma was very grandma. Like, you go over
Yeah.
there and she'd be like,
She baked
eat,
cookies.
eat. Oh, I just had dinner. I don't care. Eat. I got the cheddar
Yes.
for you.
Yeah, my grandma, she would be like, "There's 6 different cookie options, like, and soup, and I made your favorite soup." And like, yeah, exactly. Grandmothers.
Definitely an awesome and amazing woman, and we'll miss her for forever. Actually, I kind of adopted a dog when I was in Iraq. I had a fairly stable position on one of my deployments. I was working at a truck stop, so we were basically, like, everything over there that's sold on the PX on base and everything like that, all the food that's in the chow hall, military drivers don't actually drive that. It's all driven by semis with local nationals and whatnot. And so
It's not like, I know that the Army has to contract certain things. Isn't that required or something? That's like a thing?
Exactly. Because the military has gotten rid of a lot of those positions. Like, the Marine Corps is actually phasing out cooks. So, like, all cooks on Marine bases are now civilians. They're not Marines.
Yeah.
And so there's kind of a lot of that. My job was, I was in control of the truck stop. So all of these trucks that are coming in, I got to make sure that they have food, they have water, they have fuel, they get out on the right convoys, going to the right place at the right time, and they don't go anywhere that they're not supposed to. But the most important part of my job is making sure these motherfuckers don't kill each other, because I got Turks, I got Kurds, I got Iraqis, I got Iranians, I got Syrians, I got Lebanese, I got fucking Jordanians. And some of these people will, like, kill each other. They can't even
talk to each other? Or, like...
Oh, there's so many different languages. I had a translator, which was honestly the best part of that position, because my translator actually made a trip to Baghdad every week, which means that I was the guy that had access to alcohol and all of the bootleg movies and everything like that on base. So I made a lot of money in Iraq.
Oh,
I wish I had known about Bitcoin then. It didn't exist yet, but so I was there, and, like, since we had, basically we're operating out of this trailer, and there's someone there 24/7, and one day I'm out on my patrol and everything like that, and I just find this super cute little fucking puppy, and, like, I'm out doing my patrol, and it starts following me. It follows me all the way back to the trailer. So I hop on the radio, I get in touch with my boss, and I'm like, Skull, this is Tweak. Skull, this is Tweak. I got a dog following me around. And he was like, well, is it cute? Yes, sir. He said, well, then fucking feed it. And so I did. And all of a sudden we adopted a dog, and I named it Velma after my Hungarian grandma.
Huh. Nice.
Long-ass story, not much payoff, but hey, there it is.
What was the name?
Velma.
Velma, okay, yeah.
Which everyone was like, that's a terrible name for a dog. And I was like, you know what? I don't care. Fuck you.
I had some of my dogs had names like Doris. Not Doris, Doris.
It's important that you roll that R and elongate that I.
Yeah. But they all had, like, Hungarian names, all my dogs did. Like Hejkash, Plechka, Reka. Like, actually, my other dog currently, her name's Reka 2.0. Reka 2.
Oh, cool.
She's one of my favorite dogs that I had back then.
What's your favorite Hungarian dish?
Chicken paprikash or paprikash.
Yes! Chicken. That is the correct answer, sir.
That's the correct answer.
Fucking
yeah.
Paprikash is so fucking delicious. And anybody in the audience who has never tried chicken paprikash, fucking fix yourself. Change your world, because that shit will blow your mind. You think
that's the first thing I ask for when I visit my mom. Chicken paprikash. She makes it so good.
Fucking good.
And then there's different ways you can have it. You can have it with rice. You can have it with, like, noodles, like macaroni or something. But you can also make those noodles that you boil in the water, like called galushka. It's like homemade noodle, whatever. That's like the traditional way to eat it. That's like the proper way, is like with the galushka or whatever.
Okay, and see, I've actually heard I'm familiar with the term babushka, but I didn't really know.
Oh no, galushka.
Oh, gabushka. Okay.
Galushka. Galushka.
G-A-L or G-A-R?
L.
L. Galushka.
Galushka. Galushka. Galushka.
All right. Well, hey, there you go. Learn something new every day, right? Yeah, I don't don't pretend to be intimately familiar with Hungarian culture. Just I have a little exposure to it, but
No, that's the good part. That's right there. Chicken paprikash. There you go. That's a good way to a good start. That's a good start.
Exactly. We got JT in the audience. He says, I disagree. I don't like chicken. If they replace chicken with beef, I would agree. And that's the thing is, the important part of the chicken paprikash is not necessarily the chicken. It is the paprikash. But I don't think beef would translate.
It's a sauce, but I don't know if the sauce would work with beef flavor is the thing. So
maybe more like a shrimp?
Yeah. But I don't like fish or seafood. But I think that would actually work better.
Yeah, I think shrimp.
Even though I don't like it, I would think that would be better. Yeah. But yeah.
How do you live in Alaska and don't like seafood, though?
I don't know. I never liked seafood my whole life. I don't know. All my family likes seafood. The rest of my family, they love it. I don't know.
I mean, I can't.
I've tried everything. I've tried squid, octopus. I've tried weird stuff. You know, I've tried to see if there's anything in the sea that I would eat, but no.
Fair enough.
Probably shrimp is the closest, actually. An imitation crab. Which is
imitation crab might be crap, like on a molecular and nutritional level, but that shit's fucking delicious.
Well, that's the kind of sushi I would eat, you know, like that. Yeah, or what is it called? Quail egg. There you go. There's a non. They would have sushi that's quail egg. That's like a non-seafood sushi. Yeah,
I am a big fan of seafood. But at the same time, like I lived in Okinawa for a year, and I did not have sushi while I was there. That's one of the two like big regrets about that year. It was probably the greatest year of my life. It was so fucking incredible. But like it's the cheapest place in the world to get scuba certified, and I didn't do that.
Oh.
And also like I'm in Japan. How did I not try sushi when I lived there for a fucking
right? What? Especially if you like seafood.
And like, I don't know. I cannot reconcile.
I remember I ordered chicken soup at a Japanese restaurant one time, and it tasted fishy. So everything they make is fish. Probably, I'm thinking in the kitchen.
I mean,
they're probably like, "Who is this idiot ordering chicken?"
I mean, you're not wrong. It's like the warning labels on everything. Like I just actually finished off a chocolate bar that had hazelnuts in it, and is like just dark chocolate and hazelnuts. But of course, it has a warning on there: processed in a facility that processes tree nuts. So like allergen warning for peanuts and whatnot. And it's like, yeah.
The allergy is like specific peanut allergy. Like it's not. Yeah, like it doesn't work on the tree nut. It only works on the or whatever. Or like it only. Huh. I didn't know that.
My only allergy, at least that I know of, is penicillin, which, thankfully, like nowadays, that's a lot. It's not as bad to have as it would have been in, say, the 1800s when they didn't have the fake.
That was their only thing that they had for everything, wasn't it?
Yeah, like it would have been really fucking bad, but. Also, like
now they have other antibiotics, right? Is that what it is? Now
because I mean, I can still do shit like azithromycin or amoxicillin.
I was gonna say amoxicillin. That's the only one I've ever been given is amoxicillin.
There's like 30 different versions of penicillin that aren't penicillin and don't trigger allergies now. But amoxicillin is definitely like it's the Band-Aid name. You know, it's the one that everybody kind of recognizes. But yeah, definitely glad that I'm not me born in the 1700s and contracting syphilis.
Oh, shit. Yes, Kat?
Oh damn! I just noticed it's already 2:53. So I do want to be respectful of your time. I know I only booked you for the 2 hours. If you want to continue, I'm having a great time. We're definitely able to for a little bit.
Let's go for a little bit longer. I do have to go somewhat soon to get some drops. I have to get some drops that are coming up.
Oh, fair enough. What are these drops? I'm intrigued now.
There's a Senor Lupe blend coming up in like an hour, and then there's a Crypto Flash. And these are both like 1 minute. You have a 1 minute time window.
Oh yeah,
to get it. You know,
I'm not familiar with either of those projects, but definitely don't want to hold you
It's like
up from being able to get
in like an hour. So, but I'll stop like 20, 30 more minutes. Probably good. It'll be good.
Alrighty, sounds like a plan. My lady is actually probably on her way home from work now as well, so that'll probably be just about perfect.
So, is there any other specific questions you have, or?
I would honestly love to know more about the world of Pixil Minis. Like, my kind of main focus is world building with Galil and Dragon Memories and whatnot.
With Pixel Minis, like the main thing I realized is that if all the characters are randomly generated, then there are no like characters that are like the brand characters. You know what I mean? Like there's no like Cloud, Strife, or Mario, right?
Okay.
So I was like, okay, but my original plan was to make characters that are based off of my dogs. Like Tatos is like one of my main characters in my storyline, and he's based off of a dog that I owned, and he's like a king character that was like this lore that was from my original games before I was even making an NFT project. And so when I was first making the mini rig, it was like I was just making that so I could make those characters. So I was making like a system so I could make different NPCs, different like hero characters for my game. And then it wasn't until I saw the CryptoPunks where I was like, I'm going to make a random generator that can make like all these different types, but then I can still not randomly generate the properties. Like I can still say the head is number 42 and just like manually set it, you know? So I've actually made like a character creator app that you can like browse the parts through and then just like generate the character. And I had that actually before I even had the random generator. And so I could, so I have some characters I'm going to be creating that are like the main characters of the world. And there's going to be like there's like a main dynasty that's this Assyrian dynasty. 7 generations, and then their dynasty is overthrown because they're overthrowing the whole monarchy system, and then Tatos goes into hiding because he's a child, but his whole family is killed, and then his uncle, who's a hermit, who was the brother of the king or whatever before, is like hides him because he's like lives outside the city to begin with, so he sneaks him out while their attack is happening, and then like later on Tatos becomes like he discovers all this technology in the world, which is called geosite. It's like a kind of like materia, just a little bit like materia.
But it's materia with a G.
Well, geosite, like GeoCities, like the website GeoCities. Like back in the day, there used to be this website everyone used called GeoCities.
I remember
GeoCities. But it's like crystals that have magical powers in it that he unlocks. He discovers it, and then he like does a bunch of research on it, and then he unlocks all of the power from them, and then he's creating like armor and weapons that are infused with them and can socket these things in them, and then he creates a geosite army of soldiers that are mercenary soldiers, because he's not like a king anymore. He's like a private citizen or whatever, but their land is under attack and there's no one to protect it, so he raises a mercenary army to fight off the land. So I call him ex-King Tatos because he's not a king anymore, but he still acts like a king character, like as far as the archetype. So he's like going to be one of the main characters, and then there's a character, Space Wolf, who crash lands on the planet, and he's an outsider, and he's kind of like the character that I'm going to be doing all the collaborations with other projects. Is all like I have a Pixtalgia Space Wolf character that's in the game there, that's standing in the game, and then Super
Shout
Cryptocross.
out to Peter Potts, another off the cuff guest. That was a hell of a conversation. Anyone out there in the audience who is not familiar with that one, watch it when we're done here, because it was a great.
I like Peter. We talk all the time on Discord about games, because he's just he's into games like I am. Like I really like the people who are like into games, like the history of games, and like like I'm a programmer, but I'm also a gamer, and I don't think the two are the same. They're two different skills.
Oh, very much so. I'm a gamer. I'm not programming. A programmer. I'm familiar.
And they help each other. Obviously, they can help each other. What's that?
I'm familiar enough with code, like I can understand it, and I have done some work with a bunch of different languages and whatnot, and I understand like how to talk to a computer in the way that the computer will understand. But if I were to say I was a programmer, I'd be lying through my teeth.
But the game design is like, there's a lot of programmers who can program who can't design games, and they think that because they're a programmer, that automatically means they're a game designer. Because like they think game designer means a game programmer, but it's not. Game designer is someone who thinks about game mechanics and rules and can make even like a board game.
Absolutely.
Like games are outside of programming. They exist outside of programming, and that's why it's two different skills. You have to develop separately, or together or whatever. But they both have to be developed. And I think that's kind of one of the biggest problems with Web3 games currently, is that they're all kind of like mobile game copy cash grabs. And I think a lot of the people who make them are not gamers and they don't love games.
Right.
And it really to me, it shows instantly. So, and they want to believe that it doesn't show, and they're going to try and do that for as long as possible. But ultimately, the people who like games are like gonna stop taking it, essentially, right?
Exactly. Like a Twisted Sister song.
What is that song? I never heard that.
We're not gonna take it.
Oh, sorry. I have heard that song.
We're
Okay.
gonna take it.
Yeah.
I didn't say it was a good song. Yeah, I definitely feel like they're two vastly distinct and separate skill sets. They work in tandem, and it's good to have both. But yeah, being able to program does not mean that you know how to make a game, and knowing how to make a game does not mean that you know how to program it and make it actually work. And I know exactly where I am on that gradient. And
then lore is a whole other thing too. Like writing, that's a whole other skill too. So I'm talking about game design. I'm talking about like game mechanics, like specifically like game systems. But then there's also the lore aspect of it, and that's part of game design too.
I'm like 80% on the lore, like 50% on the mechanics, and like 10% on the coding. Like that's kind of
actually a good way to think about it. There's probably you are. It's like you can have probably a graphic chart representing your profile or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, I definitely, sometime off interview, because I feel like we can have a good conversation for content creation about, the procedural generation and whatnot, and I feel like we already did that. But I also want to pick your brains about specifics, which would not be nearly as entertaining for people watching. So I'm definitely.
It might actually be better to show that as well, because it's a lot easier to. I don't mind showing my code or anything like that. Like, I'm all about sharing knowledge. I don't want to hoard or,
That's awesome, and I'm so glad. And also shout out to Kevin /Prime Rogue /Bedago /Carry the Zero for introducing us. And
I like Prime Rogue. He's also a gamer type.
Exactly. Like he has become one of my best friends in this space in the relatively short time that I've known him. Like, when he first got into Splinterlands, he hopped into Splinterlands TV, and it happened to be when I was on Splinterlands TV. And so, like, the first thing I did was like, oh yeah, do this, don't do this, don't do this, and give me your name so I can send you a bunch of cards. And, like, that's how everything started from there. And, like, I've become a much better streamer through knowing him. My network has definitely expanded exponentially. And, like, honestly, I don't feel like Dragon Memories would actually be something that we would be really working on and going to be pushing out a finished project this year without him. Like, he has been a huge influence and resource for me, and greatly appreciate that, man.
I think he's also, let's say, like, he's particular. Like, he's kind of like I am, where he gets maybe a little bothered. Right? about not like being true to or respecting games, right?
In his world.
Sorry, what's that?
It's almost like what's been going on the last 2 weeks in his world.
I mean, and whenever I talk to him, I could tell he's like on that same page of like, these people are not actually gamers.
Yeah.
you know, and like, and it's obvious. I don't know, and it should be like everyone's pretending it doesn't matter or something. Yeah, I don't want to start into the drama stuff, but yeah.
I mean, drama
So
is welcome.
I don't think he's afraid to say it. That's my point, and I like that.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. And like like I said, I'm you know, I'm the gamer. I'm not the, you know, the coder or the world creator. I have a decent grasp on tokenomics. Like, I can like look at things and I can see where things are going wrong, but I don't necessarily know the answer.
People say the tokenomics, they can mean two things. They can say, what are the tokenomics, or the word utility, sorry, when they say, what is the utility of this token? And then they mean like, how much money will it earn me per week or per month?
Right.
And it's like, utility to me means functionality. What is the functionality of this token?
Yes, what can this token do?
Yeah, and I've thought of like, we've had that for a long time in games, where you have digital assets that give you access and functionality. We've always had that. They just weren't on the blockchain. So that's why the Web3 part to me isn't like suddenly we've invented digital assets. No, it's like it has to do with the infrastructure and how it works and how it makes it so someone like me, a single nerd, can make an MMO, because I'm leveraging the Web3, the blockchain infrastructure, and I don't have to do all that. And when I tried to make RPG in the past, my biggest problem was security and creating and securing it. Was like the reason why I was like, well, this will be a fun project. Like, after a few months, I realized I would never be able to get it secure, and I was just like, okay, well, I'm at least going to use this as an opportunity to learn everything about like, how do you implement inventories and chests and, you know, like that kind of stuff. But I knew that it was like a waste of time, because I wouldn't be able to get the security well, or do it well enough. And so now with Web3, it's kind of like, if you program it right, where you're doing that whole dummy client thing, and you're specifically respecting that dynamic of like, the Web3 part is hold to the data, all the game state is there, the client is just a viewer, and you never use the client to have any of the data, or you don't trust them. It's trustless. As long as you design it like that, it's secure, and then all you're having to do is program the game logic. That's why I think it's the future, because it unlocks the potential for like 90% of people who are not able to do that, make games and make big games. And if you try and make an MMO even now on Web3, people will say, oh, you're making an MMO, don't you know that takes 1,000 people? It's like, well, don't you know that's what Web3 is changing?
Right.
But I would say
Yeah, that is the long-term goal for Dragon Memory. So basically, a little quick kind of rundown on the history of Galil. Obviously, as you can see, the planet is a cube, and that happened roughly 350,000 years ago. So we've got kind of the breaking of the world, and since then we've got a whole bunch of history. All of the humanoid races have kind of come along at various times, and we have the whole generation aspect of that going on, and understanding where they come from and everything. And then the last humanoid race to be created was actually humans, and basically they're the worst thing to ever happen to this beautiful planet, because that's kind of how I feel about Earth and us. We are the worst thing to ever happen to this beautiful planet. And so, like, right now, with Dragon Memories, what we're doing is each one of the sides, there are elder dragons that guardianship themselves to protect the planet, but they hate each other. And so, because they guardianship themselves to the planet and basically kind of fused their essence with the actual physical material of the planet, that is what forced it into the cube shape, because they hate each other, and they're kind of warring with each other over territory at all of those borders. And so it takes a while for it to actually turn from a sphere into a cube, or at least a spheroid into a cube.
I like how it's designed from the bottom up all the way. That's the way to do it, I think.
Exactly.
Right.
Like, when I say I started the changes from the ground up, I'm specifically referring to the fact that the planet you live on is.
Here's how the world is. The only way that you would have gone one step above that would be to say, and here's how the molecules work in this world. Like,
Yeah, and I mean, that's a level that
in this universe.
I'm not quite at, breaking down molecules and shit like that. But like the cosmology is actually something that I'm still kind of. I don't know anyone who's really got that strong astronomical brain, but I am looking for somebody who would be willing to like design the stars and whatnot that are around this planet, because it's got crazy ass rotation. It's basically
You're right. It has to do with what you're into. So
through space in orbit, kind of like a die that has been cast, right? Like a D6. And so, like, we know that this side, which is the desert side, this is actually getting sun like 80 to 90% of the time. This side, which is the most Earth-like side, has a very crazy metric time scale where there's 10 days in a week, and each one of those days has a different amount of sunlight that follows a distinct pattern. We have no moon, so lycanthropy is based on the fact that you actually get, the days are 10 hours long, and you have 26 hours each week where the sun. For some reason, I'm
remembering Pitch Black with
and you have 26 hours where the sun doesn't go down. I definitely drew inspiration from Alaska on that one. And,
I like that kind of stuff though, where like things are up for question. Like
so
like why is the sky blue? Like maybe it's different. Like
the next kind of step on that is I want to be able to know what constellations are visible at what time from what side, because we do have such an erratic.
See, this all depends on what you're into. So like if you're gonna need like astrologer friends, right? Like what I liked about Ultima is all the map stuff, and that the guy Richard Garriott, he's like really into cartography. So that's why that's why that game feels very map and explorer-y. But so I'm really into history. That's what I really like. So like military history and stuff like that. So for me, that's kind of more how the lore will be. Is like, have you ever played Mountain Blade?
I've never even heard of it.
Okay, it's a military kind of, well, it's two parts. It's like a military simulation horse combat fighting part, and then the other part is like the overview grand, like getting into battles and taking over lands and conquering areas and taking over cities, and like it's made by like one person from Turkey, and it's became a huge hit. Because it's like an interactive simulation. One of my favorite types of games. But yeah, it's that
does sound pretty awesome.
It's all about it's all about like houses and the people and the dynasties and like that kind of stuff. More like that's what I mean. Is like, so definitely my world will be sort of like that, but then also like fantasy, like folklore based, like the actual world itself, like the creatures and the flora and the fauna, like that kind of stuff, down to that level. But I think my game will focus more on like the characters, like the main characters, but then the world will be the setting, obviously. But I think
so you're more character driven than story driven,
or setting, more character than setting, right? Like so like even when I think of like developing the lore, I'm thinking of like the lore of the histories of the people and stuff, versus like I'm not that into astrology, so I'm not gonna think about the position of the stars in the sky, right? Like that's like not.
Yeah.
Like,
and see, like,
so you need to,
me,
it's based on your interest. Your interests become the thing you're making, right? Like you can't help it.
For me, I'm more interested in the astronomy than the astrology. Like I don't care about the constellations.
Oh, astrology. Sorry, that's the mystic. That's the
exactly.
Part.
I'm not
sorry,
talking about star
astronomy.
charts and shit like that. I'm more interested in like using the stars to navigate, like how here on Earth we've got
like people are really into that stuff. People like there's physics nerds, right? And they're the type of people who will write the lore based around physics.
Exactly. That's the person I'm looking for, is someone who someone who's physics minded and has a deep understanding of cosmological events.
They love talking about it, even like they just love thinking and talking about it. But yeah, that's like.
Yeah, because like that's where my passion is like the world building and everything that's gone on and the history and the racial interactions and everything like that and where things have come from and like I've got all of that shit taken care of for Galil, but it's like, okay, well, I love physics and I study it a little bit, but I'm not necessarily like good at it. Like I've never like I didn't go to college for physics or anything like that. It's just a passing interest. So I know what I want, but I don't know how to get there. And so that's why it's like I need someone with a little bit of expertise in this subject. And it's like my best friend, he's not like a working geologist or anything, but that is what he went to college for. And so like
No, my
without
wife,
him,
she's not a geologist, but she's really into geology, so she's always telling me about geology
exactly
whenever
that
we're traveling.
type of thing.
So
And it's
yeah,
like without him, Galil as a formed concept wouldn't exist because it was basically like, all right, we're gonna start with this planet, and this planet is a cube, and I understand that's physically impossible. So
yeah, my wife would be like, that doesn't work. That wouldn't layer like that. She'd like be pointing out like the flaws of my logic of how the world is put together physically.
absolutely, it's a perfect match
Yeah.
because that's exactly the same kind of relationship we have. It's like, okay,
Nice.
we're gonna start with this conceit that the world is a cube, and we have a magical reason for that. But starting
Right.
from that, I want to make everything as realistic and scientifically accurate as possible, so that we hand wave away as little as possible with because magic. Because it's
Right.
not a satisfying answer. I mean, it's something you
Right.
have to go to in fantasy, otherwise it's not sufficiently fantastical.
And you can also do the thing where you just don't talk about it, but then that's actually kind of like how you can tell if a world is kind of thin. Like if you compare, these RPG worlds of like Lord of the Rings versus Harry Potter versus, some of them are more built from the ground up and some are less built from the ground up. And so it's like you can kind of tell when they're not talking about everything or
Yeah.
they're avoiding things,
Yeah, and,
So it's good to have it all down. Like even if you don't talk about it, hey, that this is how it works. And then when the characters do talk about it and they reference it, they're thinking about it and talking about it like that is a real thing in their world. So
exactly.
you
Like, I'm fully
you write like an
aware
800-page thing about it, but you never say half the things from it, right?
I'm fully aware that 60 to 70% of the conversations that Ben and I have had about Galil are things that nobody will ever find out or need to know or even think about.
But it's good. It's
they're
consistent
there
in your
we
head
know
as like
because that helps to build everything else.
you,
Like, the
you can
deeper
draw
your
from it
knowledge
then.
is,
Like
even
yeah,
if no one's going to see it.
yeah. I think this is like the best way to do it. Yeah, for world building or lore building. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we've got it's a crazy ass fucking planet. We got one side which is kind of Earth-like, with varied, climates and everything like that. We got one side that is basically entirely a desert. We got one side that is completely flooded, basically just a gigantic ocean. We got one side that is covered in ice. We got one side that is entirely a swamp, and one
Nice.
side that
I like
is
biome types. Oh yeah, biomes.
yeah, basically just a gigantic forest. And we've got a whole lot of racial tensions and political intrigue that have happened over the course of the intervening millennia. Humans have been around for a few thousand years now, and in that course they have proven themselves to be basically destructive fucks that most of the other races have kind of turned their backs on. And we're actually like, when I first started building this world, it was as a D&D campaign setting. And I was building, a specific campaign. And that specific campaign starts in the year Common Era 8. So it is 8 years after the end of the 1,000+ year war between the humans and the elves, during which almost all written records have been destroyed. So
That happens in history all the time, so that makes sense. Yeah.
Despite the fact that we have a 350,000 year history, there is very little of that is actually available to players. And it starts at a royal wedding between the High Prince, who's king in all but name of the biggest human land. His name is High Prince Tudor, and he is only not a king because he doesn't have a queen. And he is marrying the daughter of the king of the other primary human land, who is King Roland, his daughter Princess Sophia, and that is where the campaign starts. And it's so like all of my players are like, okay, well, you're at a royal wedding, you're in this major city, you have to figure out a reason to be here and where you are, and then we start, and then things happen from there. But yeah, that's basically how everything has come to bet, and we've been going over, over the course of 350,000 years, what has changed about this planet, how things progressed, and also now we're really starting, since we are starting from the breaking in Dragon Memories. Dragon Memories is basically you're going into the mind of the Elder Dragons that guardianship themselves to the planet, because now they're starting to wake up.
Bahamut. I love that stuff, that kind of stuff. Dragon lore. I love dragons.
Yeah, I mean, they're just the fucking best.
Who doesn't?
And so now they're waking up, which is why you as a player are able to enter their memories, but then you as a player have the job of figuring out why they're waking up and dealing with that, because there's going to really come down to a big choice. Like, the world itself, it wants to be spheroid. Like, that's how gravity works.
It wants to be, yeah.
The planet is fighting against the control of the Elder Dragons. The planet itself is kind of falling apart because of that battle, and now the dragons are waking up. They're starting to lose their control, and so the question is, do you help the dragons to maintain control and try and push it off as far as possible, although they are going to lose in the end? Or do you try and hasten their demise and allow the planet to go back to being a cube as soon as possible, just to get it over with? Like, there's going to be some interesting gameplay aspects to that, I feel. And we're starting out with basically kind of a dungeon crawler. It's not actually dungeons as you're exploring their memories, but it's, very railroady. But once we get all 6 of the Elder Dragons that are guardianship themselves to the planet out, then comes the full game that I'm really working on, which is the WoW style MMO, where you're actually, it's a sandbox and you can go wherever the hell you want, do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, that's my favorite type of game. Open world sandbox. Interactive simulation it just means like non-scripted, not predetermined, but emergent gameplay, like where the story isn't the written story. It's, I went to the thing, and then that one guy did this thing, and then I shot him in the thing, and then that happened, and then that's like the story. It's the player's story, and it's like what they call that is like the co-authored narrative, basically, between the game designer and the player.
And so that is exactly what D&D is all about.
And games can do that, and movies can't. So that's why don't make games into movies. Right. You're ruining a medium with way more potential if you're going to limit it to just movies. Have you seen the
new Mario movie?
No, I haven't, but I will watch it. I will. I really like the old movie because it's fucking weird, and that's why I like it. But this one just is more normal.
It was great.
Which one? The new one?
Yeah, the new one was saw in theaters, and I was a little hesitant at first because I remember the old Mario movie.
It was a weird movie. I don't watch that because it's about Mario. It's because it's a fucking weird movie.
I don't watch that, period. But I do remember it.
It's not like nostalgic 90s good trash?
No. The new one, though, like, number one, Jack Black as Bowser, fucking phenomenal.
Oh, that sounds pretty good.
Fucking phenomenal. But even more than that...
Wait, but is it live action or is it like CG?
It's CGI.
So Bowser's actually Bowser.
Yes, exactly.
Not like Dennis Hopper with some spiked hair or like.
Yeah, no, it's all. Gotcha, bitch. Just kill the fly. It's all CGI and voice acting. But yeah, Jack Black just does a phenomenal job as Bowser. And
I'll definitely watch it.
There's a lot of.
I watched
really
the Tetris movie. I didn't like it that much, but I watched it anyways because it's game related, of course.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good nostalgia moments in there for those of us who are like old school Mario gamers, and I feel like they did a really good job at kind of touching among all of the evolutions of Mario. Like, you'll have old school ass Mario shit in there, and you'll also have the newer shit as well. I did notice a distinct lack of
Smash
Yoshi.
Brothers references. Sorry, what?
I did notice a distinct lack of Yoshi.
Oh, no, Yoshi.
but I mean, it was a good
Weird.
tale.
You know, and I think about why is Yoshi not in any of the like Smash Brothers games? Actually, don't you ride Yoshi in like the single player thing for Smash Brothers or something? I'm remembering. I don't
I'm
remember.
not all that familiar with Smash Brothers, but
That's weird that they don't have
could be
Yoshi as
correct.
one of their main characters. I wonder if that's a copyright thing. Who owns the rights or something? I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I don't think Mario is Marvel, but
No, no. I mean, Nintendo somehow doesn't own the rights to Yoshi, which doesn't make sense. But
no, that's what I meant by the Marvel joke. How Marvel is Disney and Marvel is also Fox and Marvel is also Sony.
oh yeah, I see. Yeah, they do. Yeah, yeah.
Like you got Marvel and then you got X-Men and then you got Spider-Man and somehow Spider-Man is still Marvel and yet still not, and yet X-Men is not at all Marvel. Oh, and then there's Deadpool, which is Marvel.
Oh right,
but
because
it's
they
not
sold their
X-Men.
rights. They
Yeah.
sold their movie rights like a really long time ago before they realized how important movies are going to become. So then
Yeah. It's a stupid, crazy.
all they had
bullshit
left was
scenario.
like Guardians of the Galaxy and like Thor, like these ones that no one wanted, and that's why they're turning those ones into the big ones that they had left.
Yeah.
And then Spider-Man's owned by like Sony or something. Yeah.
Yeah, Spider-Man is Sony, X-Men is Fox, and then the rest of Marvel is Disney. And it's those they will never work
Marvel
together.
doesn't even exist, in other words. It's now Disney.
Yeah.
Well, Marvel Studios, I guess, yeah. But,
Yeah, I mean Thor, if you think about it, he's the child of a king. He's got long flowing blonde hair and is extremely attractive and has magical powers. Therefore, Thor is a Disney princess.
Holy shit! He is the Disney princess. Ah, fuck! That's where they went.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Is Thor is now a Disney princess.
I was gonna say something about Dark Souls. Did you ever play Dark Souls?
I have played a couple hours of Dark Souls. I'm not
I played like
very good
one and
at
two.
it.
I didn't even play the new Elden Ring or whatever and stuff like that. But and also just like the old Final Fantasy games, the lore was like they didn't have very much room to have text. And like in Dark Souls, there just isn't text because it's just the aesthetic style of that game.
Yeah.
It's like no one talks, and then if you talk to someone, they say like one sentence, and it's like that one sentence though is all about like the person talking in a way like he exists in a world filled with lore. So like all of that lore comes through in that one sentence, and like because they're saying it as if that shit was true to them for them because they exist in that world. And so like you can establish an entire world and say almost nothing and it could still convey the world.
Yeah.
Like how Dark Souls does it. So it's like you don't have to say a lot. You don't have to say paragraphs. But you do have to design the world to have all those ideas in there already, or else it's gonna definitely feel like it's not there. It's missing.
Yeah, if it's like a complete thing and then you try and just add shit in, then it's not going to come across right. But if you're building it all together and that's what I've been
That's
working
why,
on with
yeah, you
Galil
build
for-
it up in your head, or you probably have it all written down, or like it's like the ideas,
Exactly.
and then you
Exactly.
draw from them when you need.
All right, well, we are going on 3:30, and again, I want to be respectful of your time, so I'm gonna give you a few minutes. If you can talk about whatever you would like. Go ahead and let people know where they can find you, where they can find your work. And
Okay, just like my Twitter, like is the main thing but I don't know how to spell, so it's not Pixel with an E. It's all eyes. Pixil Mini, like with four eyes. Pixil Mini, like that.
that was one of the first
the-
things
the
I noticed
four-
about the project. I was like, Pixel with an I instead of an E. Okay, that's interesting.
Because
And
it's
then it
like
was
the
Pixel
four
Mini.
eyes
This is four eyes.
become
That's cool.
the four eyes are like the characters, and you have a squad of four. That's why.
Okay,
Kind of silly, but
I dig
it's
it.
because like when you look at, I'm obsessed with typography and stuff too. So, like those eyes to me are like little people with heads, right? And then, so that's right. The four minis are right in the name, Pixel Mini. Like those are your squad of fours, the core part of the game.
Yeah, see, I figured that there was an actual reason behind it and not just a typo. Like, I wasn't
Yeah.
chalking it up to Louie can't spell. I was chalking it up
No.
to...
But I
there's a reason
realize
for that.
now I have to tell everybody how to fucking spell it so they can find the website. You know, Eventually it'll speak for itself and they'll know. But you know, for now I have to like tell people, hey, if you want, especially if I'm just talking and I'm not showing someone the link, I have to say pixelmini.com, but with all eyes. Pixilmini.com.
PIXILMINI.com.
Yeah.
For anyone out there who's wondering.
And then, or also twitter.com/pixilmini.
Yep.
I have to say it like it's Spanish.
Pixil.
Pixil. Yeah. And so there you can find the actual game client and then any kind of updates that I'm doing to the world. Like, oh, and the other thing about the world that I didn't say was that currently the world is made out of like 8 areas, but the system can handle an infinite amount of areas. I just didn't want to make a bunch of areas until the tile sets are done. Or else it's going to be throwaway. And so like the grasslands tile set is now getting to the point where there's like different size objects because you need to have a mix of different sizes so you can create a good looking area so that it doesn't all look mono size or whatever. And
yeah.
There's a term for that called barnacling, actually, to put larger things and then put smaller things around that and then smaller things around those. And it's actually, that's a term for procedural generating, actually, how to create procedurally generated realistic looking areas.
And so it's kind of what you do with the characters too. Like you start with the body and then you go down to parts of the body and then you go down to colors of the parts of the body. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so then the world will be one of the main other things we're going to be working on next is like actually making the maps. And so there's like there's a system for switching biomes between like different tile sets. So there's like desert tile set, snow tile set, but even that is just a system that I make that like I think about the system. So like the system is the ability to switch between biomes and to have more than one biome. And then like adding more biomes now will just work. So I can have, so there's 3 so far, but that's just because I've like, that's enough to test the system. But the goal is to have many different biomes and they will all use that tile set switching system or whatever. And then I'm going to be building a 10 by 10, 100 areas center of the world as like the main starting zones. And I'm going to be manually making those in this tiled map editor and exporting the maps to tokens, making tokens. But at some point later, I'm going to actually make a procedural map generator that's a smart contract. So that way, when you're in an area and there's an area that it connects to that doesn't exist yet, there will be like a little for sale sign there, and then you can expand the world, and it'll actually randomly generate the map at purchase time. And that is when the world will become infinitely expandable by the players, which is like I actually had that working in RPG already, and I like gave one guy like a bunch of gold so he can buy areas and stuff, and he just like made 100 areas that are like Fire Mountain, and I gave him the ability to place monsters and stuff, and I made a new fire horse, and that's why he made the whole Fire Mountain themed around fire horses, because I just gave him that new monster. So it's kind of like that's where it's going to be going. But for now, you can just log in and see how the world works, and you can't fight yet, and you can't get any loot or anything like that. But once that stuff goes live, it will be in the exact same place, because that's what I like. I can just push the updates live straight to the webpage.
Gotcha.
So just follow Twitter. That's where I post everything. I don't have time to update any other things. And then the main website is where everything will be. Eventually, there'll be more. Like right now, there's nothing to do. There's no incentive to play because there's no gameplay loop. But eventually, that's where that will be as well.
Yeah, I have gone in and wandered about a little bit, and I mean,
it's
kind of definitely like a cool little interaction. But yeah, I'm looking forward to actual gameplay being involved.
There's no reward. That's like the main thing is you need an incentive reward loop.
Yeah.
So I can't even, I'm running around just to test things. And so I understand that but when you travel between areas, there's a battle, and like that's currently a placeholder as well, where you just talk to like a random NPC and he or she will tell you a quote from a list of news updates for the game kind of, but then that's just a placeholder, but that's where you will be battling. So it's kind of just to show you, this is where the battle will be. This is how it will feel. Your little characters will line up there. The battle will only happen when you're traveling between areas, stuff like that. You can't fight monsters in the areas. Yeah.
Awesome. It definitely sounds great. I'm very excited to see what comes, and glad that I already own a full team worth of assets, and I'll definitely be picking up some more and getting more stronger characters as things goes along, because I've only got 142 right now.
Oh, actually, I had your characters open. You have Hannah 3311. That's the one that you probably think is the number one because it says mint number one.
Yeah.
So it says mint one of one, but then it says actually Hannah 3311.
Yeah.
So her number is actually 3311. And then the other one, Militiadis, is mint number 8567, but his token number is actually 18567 because he came from the 10,000 after. Like,
Gotcha.
But then I'm actually going to be changing that because I don't like 5-digit numbers. So for the next set, it'll be 1 through 9,999. So only 10,000 of them or whatever. But then it'll say the edition. So it'll say like Alpha 3.2 number one, Alpha 3.
Gotcha.
So that's how you'll be able to tell the difference between the different number ones from the different editions. So, and I'm going to remint all of these old tokens, by the way, and there will be a way for you to upgrade and convert your old tokens to new tokens, and they'll also gain features with that, like rarity rank and border, and
Cool.
animations, stuff like that.
Awesome.
Special effects. And the new 3.2 edition drop will be coming end of June. I think June 30th is the date I want to have it drop. So, and then in that meantime, before that, I have to actually generate them, which will take me about 2 weeks, and then I'll have the drop scheduled, I think, for 2 weeks.
We all heard it here. Get your fucking wax ready for June 30th.
And so this new edition will have all those fancy animations and rarity ranks, and also all the new art from Hatuken. And then after that, I will be reminting the old ones. So,
Gotcha.
to make it all consistent, because I don't like how there's 3 different template systems now. The cat is losing his mind. I should go.
Yeah, alrighty.
He wants to go out really bad.
Thank you very much for joining us. Go ahead and in our Discord PM, drop your wax address. I'm gonna go ahead and send you a couple pack vouchers for Dragon Memories, and
Nice.
And we'll
Definitely check that out. That sounds cool.
It's not gonna be anything for a little while. We're looking at pre-alpha in Q4, but hard at work on the way, and definitely appreciate you.
Yeah, that
coming
shit
by.
takes time. It takes time.
Yeah. And if you have any links other than Twitter,
I mean, if you want to make if you're looking for a long-term quality thing, it's going to take time.
Yeah. So yeah, if you have any other links other than Twitter, Pixil Mini, and pixelmini.com, then because I'll go ahead and post those when I fully upload everything to YouTube and whatnot, get the video in the playlist for the VOD. If you have any other links you would like me to put up, then go ahead and throw that.
No, that's everything. I have a Discord, but I kind of keep that a little bit more low key, down low.
Gotcha.
You can find the link to that inside of a member pass.
Okay.
You don't need the member pass to play or test the demo thing right now, but later you will need it in order to be able to get rewards and loot. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining. As always, I've been.
Oh, actually, sorry.
Go ahead.
I have one more thing about the member passes. There's 2 different ones. The only one you can get is the member pass light, and it gives you access to the game. And then there's the older one, the member pass, which gives you pack drops. So that's kind of a thing too. So if you like, they give you future pack drops of all the editions that are coming.
Oh, nice. So Rick's got to find an OG member pass. That's
they're hard to find because there's none on the market now. People bought them all. So.
Naturally.
But I just thought I would say that.
I'm going to try, at least.
Okay.
All right. To those in the audience, thank you very much for hanging out with us. It has been a wonderful time, and we will catch y'all next week. And in the meanwhile, aw, such a cute little kitty. Make sure that y'all go check out Pixil Minis, and definitely some awesome procedurally generated PFP NFTs available on Wax, and they're really cool. There's a lot of cool shit about them, between all of the different stats and all of the different visual effects that are available. It's definitely quite a collection, and hats off to you in the creation of such. It's definitely really cool, and I'm very excited to see actual gameplay coming forth, and where we go from here.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
Fun to talk about all this stuff. Have a good one.